from the 2008 violence. We've never had a healing process. We've swept it under the rug.
Let me tell you, the handshake was the most disastrous political event in the history of country after the coup attempt of 1982.
There is no Kikuyu pothole, Luo lack of water,
Right.
Okamba, lack of traffic.
Yeah.
There is no Luya lack of drugs in the hospitals. Or Jaluo one. All our issues are the same issues.
If you are in a room and just about everybody in that room has a court case or another, what impression does that give you?
What are you saying? Why haven't you done it in the last 20 years? But they're telling us, like August, some miracle is going to happen. My friend, I want to tell Kenyans you'll be in for a rude shock.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
SpiceFM, Nyeri.
Friday, and we're looking at the last day of the week. What do we have in store today? It looks like traffic has just started to build up on many of these Nairobi streets. Jogo Road doing that thing this morning. Langata Road free and clear, as is Ngong Road. You're going to look at Uhuru Highway and you're going to be all right going into the city and then out towards Westlands. Where we do have the most action this morning is on the Thika Superhighway, and it's just going past the Pangani underpass at this moment. Nothing too crazy past Survey and the Utali Drift, so we're just going to keep an eye on that. Also seeing some action on Wayaki Way coming towards the city. James Gishuru also will give us some of that. And into the CBD, we see some traffic. On Mombasa Road, starting to build up as well. Jogo Road will do that for a few minutes this morning, but then we should be all right. How about we talk in a short while on SpiceFM KE on Twitter? Let's know what's going on in your neck of the woods. Are you stuck somewhere? Find a good route. Let us know via text as well. 40127.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
Yes, it is.
The only way to start your day.
It's 8 minutes after 6. What's the date? 25th day of February 2022. It's Friday. Yes, it is. Ndu?
Yeah.
It's Friday.
The person who knows the lyrics to that song
It's City.
Which one is that one?
It's Friday. Yeah. Then Saturday, Sunday. Whoa. It's Friday. Yeah. Saturday, Sunday. Whoa.
You know, I've heard that song, but I honestly have no idea what they're saying. That's all you hear.
Yeah,
it's a mumbling of things, and I have no clue what they're saying.
Make up your own. Don't be boxed. Do as you wish. What do you want it to be?
It's the spirit of Friday.
Yes. How do you want the song to go?
See, the way it goes is fine. As long as I'm not required to
long as
actually
you're
know.
going,
No.
At the end, so long as he says,
Who is the
Good.
universal? That
You're
universal
That is
language.
you have shown us you know the song.
You
That
get
is-
that one, you got it.
You got it.
Yeah. You're well, City?
I'm very well, thank you.
Yes. Asante sana. It's good to see you.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you too.
Yes.
And how is life treating you?
Life is treating me well.
This life is a good thing.
Well done, life.
Life is behaving.
Treats people well.
Welcome to the show, everybody. We have some interesting conversations to have. So we will be looking again into what happened at Sagana. President Uhuru Kenyatta hosting the leadership of Mount Kenya and people from Mount Kenya at Sagana and having a conversation there. So what does that mean? We know, obviously, that there is the Jubilee NDC, the ODM NDC, and a big rally that is planned for Sunday, which is expected to unveil candidate Raila Odinga, among other things. We will have a conversation about that at 7 a.m. At 8, let's talk about Putin. The Russian President Vladimir Putin, yes, we know, ordered troops to cross over into Ukraine in what he called is to liberate Ukraine and to denazify the country. We have seen serious reactions coming in from European countries and America, some serious sanctions that have been announced by those countries. NATO itself also, the leadership of NATO meeting and discussing what to do in kind of response. So we'll have that conversation. Today is Friday. Dr. Mercy Korir will be joining us at 9 o'clock. We'll have a Healthy Friday conversation looking at what's happening to our universal health coverage after it was rolled out by countrywide by Uhuru Kenyatta, the president. How's it doing? She'll be here at 9. COVID.
Yes. Thank you.
Welcome.
I was just looking at your salmon shirt. I think it's just important to note that today Eric Latiff is wearing a shirt of the salmon-colored persuasion.
The what?
Salmon.
That pink is called salmon?
Indeed it is.
And it is not salmon.
No.
How do you spell it?
Please.
How do you spell it?
The L is silent.
It's spelled S-A-L-M-O-N.
M-O-N.
Salmon.
Stop it.
Salmon. You think
Salmon near Muhubiri.
Yes, S-E-R-O-M-N.
Yeah. Oh.
Salmon.
Surely.
Or S-U-M-M-O-n.
Why are we trying to take away from the import of this conversation?
Because there's an L and it is salmon.
And Eric is wearing the shirt.
So it's salmon.
No, it's not. What it is, though, is 41 new cases of COVID-19 in the country. Gives a positivity rate back again to 0.7%, but still under 1%, so it's very good. Kenya has been recording these low numbers and keeping the positivity rate under 1%. Zero recorded deaths yet again. We did hear from the Ministry of Health yesterday what it does look like in this whole hullabaloo that came out of Parliament, and MPs are asking Kagwe, just stop this acting position for Dr. Amoth and just make him the guy. This is what we're looking at now. He's worked tirelessly. The Globe has recognized him. So come on, why are we not able to just give him the job? He's been acting for 3 years plus. So, while this statement was being made, those things came up as well.
Has he been earning an acting salary or is he earning a substantive salary?
C'est une bonne question. I'm not sure actually if it's an acting one or a permanent one. But they said, look, it's about time. He's proven that he can do the job. I mean, he's been doing it. So confirm the man. All right, so we're looking at world numbers, 431 million, up 3 million from the last time we looked at them 24 hours ago. And let's look at an interesting story coming out of England, again, which seems to be taking a lot of the action for COVID. Millions of vaccine doses destroyed in England. This is at the same time when the World Health Organization is talking about vaccine equilibrium and saying that, let's not hoard vaccines from those countries that are unable to get them. And here we are having countries who are destroying them because there's no uptake. Around 4.7 million COVID vaccines, 4% of the total, ended up in wastage in England by the end of October 2021. According to a government report, AstraZeneca's shots made up of 1.9%. The National Audit Office, which scrutinizes spending of public money, says the wastage is far lower than projected. So they knew that there was going to be some waste for the country's most ambitious vaccine program ever. Experts had assumed 20% of stocks might not be used because of handling and storage problems or expiry dates. It seems that most of these numbers comes from expiry dates that they've not been taken up. Expiry date has come and they've had to get rid of them. The report praises the rollout overall, however, and says that there were challenges. This includes being left with too many expiring AstraZeneca doses after experts recommended that people under 40 should preferably be given the Pfizer or Moderna vaccines to avoid a rare but possible link to blood clots. We had seen that initial vaccine stage where people then got blood clots in certain countries and then it was then linked somehow to AstraZeneca. So it's interesting that they've been able to do an audit so quickly after the rollout and seen that, all right, we've lost some. 4% of the total. We expected to lose 20%. So they've done well, according to them. And that's about the size of it for COVID this morning.
Alrighty. We are live streaming the shows, you remember, on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, and Facebook. Are you online? If you are, say hello. We'll be doing a roll call of who's online this morning shortly after we take a look at the weather forecast. A very good morning to you. This is the Situation Room, broadcasting from the Standard Group Center in Nairobi.
SpiceFM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they're getting per year, how much inconvenience they're causing. As much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a Fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning, we will see highs later on of 24 and lows of 15. Partly cloudy conditions at 14 in Nakuru, highs of 26 and lows of 13. In Nyeri, it's clear at 14, highs of 24. We'll see lows of 11, while 13 and clear in Eldoret, it'll go to highs of 24 and lows of 12. Looking into Mombasa, it's clear at 26, highs of 32 and lows of 25, while in Malindi, partly cloudy conditions at 27, highs of 31 and lows of 25. The clouds up in Kisumu skies at 20, highs of 29 and lows of 19, while in Kakamega, we'll see highs of 29 and lows of 15. Kampala is clear at 23, 26 will be the high and lows of 19, while we have cloudy conditions in Dar es Salaam at 25. It'll go to highs of 31. Lagos, mostly clear at 27, highs of 34 and lows of 26, while at 15, Johannesburg is clear. It'll go to highs of 26 and lows of 14. Partly cloudy conditions in Kinshasa at 24. We'll see highs of 34 today. It's sunny in Beijing, out into early afternoon Friday. We'll see highs of 12 and lows of 0. 2 degrees and clear in Paris, highs of 11 and lows of 1. London is clear at 5. It'll go to highs of 12 and lows of 2. 0. With a winter weather advisory in New York, we'll see highs of 1 Thursday night and lows of 0.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
19 minutes after 6.
Good morning, one and all. Jack Sangura says he's tuned in from Emuhai and Vihiga County. SpiceFM KE, TGIF Andrew. Greetings from a cold and damp Bernard Estate in leafy Lavington. Let's talk about real issues, shall we? Yes, let's. Meja Mwangi says, good morning, tuned in this morning, for example. You're tuned in, for example. Okay, we'll allow you tune in, for example. Benson Boomer tuned in from Mombasa. From Tom and Boy Estate. Hey. Controversious Nyando Hoyason. Good morning to you too. Kabisa. Good morning, Team TSR, CT and Eric. Why are you people even arguing about the L? Okay, slowly.
The L in salmon.
The silent L in salmon. The color is pink. Hakuna kitu kama salmon. Okay, Odero. It's all right. We understand of what gender persuasion you are. Atieno Lillian. Good morning from Kisumu. In public service, an acting position attracts certain allowances, but the salary remains unchanged. So there's your question for Dr. Amoth and what he may have been earning. 87.9, John Joe, David Okoth, up, Beruru FM. Good morning, tuned in from Laikipia, Koinange Wahome, that's where he is. Johnston is watching from Kericho. Pauline Shiro Mungai says, good morning, Ndu City Eric. End of another week, indeed, praying for our nation and Ukraine, for sure. Tuned in from Nigeria, Gombe State, specifically in Kaltungo local government area. Shehu Kwasam, good morning to you. Yeah, already tuned in from Eldoret.
Local government area is like a ward.
Local government area is ward.
Like a ward?
Yes.
With an MCA?
With an MCR.
Right.
Benson Mumo, good morning to you too. Amos Freeman, woken up with a bang in Kimilili, and United States of Kochomba Nama. I can't even, my tongue already is doing things. Good morning, Siundu. Good morning to you. Ruben Kagame, we see you. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for tuning in this Friday. Asante.
Karibuni sana. City?
Yes, we moved from Tunisia to Algeria. Yes. And on Monday, we'll have one more Algerian proverb.
Okay.
Before we then move on to yet another country in that region.
Okay.
Right. As we didn't say a word, he thought he could do anything he liked.
Sounds like something Mrs. Patience Okoh would say.
As he didn't say a word.
As we didn't say a word.
Oh.
He thought he could do anything he liked.
It's because I didn't tell you anything. That's why you're behaving anyhow, Abi.
Because you've been silent.
That's it.
You thought silence is consent.
In fact, silence was read and interpreted and given the 360 equals consent.
As we didn't say a word, he thought he could do anything that he liked.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nice one. Let's look at the newspaper headlines. www.standardmedia.co.ke and the Standard Media app, the Standard e-paper on Google Play Store and Apple App Store. What are you looking at? Ndu?
Okay, Sagana Aftershocks is what we're hearing, and the nation is asking the question, profit or project, and Ion Raila, and Ruto answers Uhuru. We'll look at that later. Sagana 3 Aftershocks is what's covered on the front page of the Standard. After Uhuru's Wednesday blistering attack, his men line up with an intense campaign plan to clip Ruto's wings in Mount Kenya, even as the DP's Kenya Kwanza Alliance plots counterattack that avoids head-on response to the president. As we'll be talking about this at 7 o'clock. What have they talked about? 30-day campaign blitz in Mount Kenya. Woo leaders and clip Ruto's support. Uhuru Raila to start rallies after a month. From Ruto's side, he says the president has a right to back Raila. Changes tack on response to Uhuru and unveils a packed trip to the US and the UK. Raila Odinga holds an NGC today and another on Saturday. Jubilee will be holding similar talks, and Raila will be unveiled as Azimio candidate. That comes as no surprise. This is covered on 4, 6, and 7. Just looking at the initial story on page 4. Talking about fact-checking Uhuru's data in Sagana speech. Some of the achievements that he had talked about and went over on what he did about the economy and things that he wants to complete before he goes on. It's interesting to note that data has shown that the government has rewarded loyal voters, a position confirmed by President Kenyatta, who insisted he had done more for Mount Kenya than any other region. For example, the longest stretch of road to be covered under the ongoing Roads 2000 program, in which the government hopes to cover about 10,000 kilometers through a public-private partnership for arrangement over the next 3 years. So cementing what he had actually done and that they actually had not been abandoned. So it's going through that fact-checking there. So there's a plan to win back Mount Kenya from Ruto, and that is taking shape. It said that they've now revealed a plan to roll out a 2-pronged campaign strategy targeting Deputy President William Ruto. The move comes 2 days after the head of state sharply criticized his number 2 and endorsed Raila Odinga to succeed him come August. Of course, Raila is Azimio La Umoja's presumptive presidential candidate. He is later this week, today, tomorrow, expected to be endorsed by other parties, including the Jubilee Party, whose leader is Uhuru. Okay?
Okay. Big stuff.
Indeed.
Okay. So let's then cross over and go to Ukraine, because that's the other headline in the papers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, the man launches the attack on Ukraine. He says, we're just going to pacify that country, by the way. It's not war. Eh? We're not interested in war. But if anybody in Europe dares to come and side with Ukraine and try to attack us, you will see fire. You will see fire. So the world has announced serious sanctions against Russia, against Putin and personalities who are said to be supporters of Putin. And these are what are called the oligarchs, the rich men and women of Russia. Some serious sanctions. So the Russia's banking system is basically being cut off.
Yeah, so no SWIFT until further notice is one of the major things that we saw yesterday.
SWIFT is a controversial one because SWIFT is being mentioned by the UK. SWIFT is not being mentioned by America. And Biden was asked, so why not SWIFT? He said, no, everything else we've done is actually even stronger than SWIFT. No. And he seemed to hint that not all their partners are in agreement on cutting off SWIFT.
It's clear. Because of the fact that their partners have something to lose should they do that. You can't run away from the fact that there's still big business being done between Washington and the Kremlin.
Yep.
That's just the truth. So there's no way they're going to shut down all outlets because they then also will take a hit. Isn't that the interesting thing about things like this?
It is.
Yeah.
And I watched both speeches, one by UK Prime Minister in the House yesterday, where he was talking about all these measures and saying, we are going to be very decisive on Kremlin and the people who support the Kremlin and all. And the whole conversation has been happening. So a lot of the money from the oligarchs has ended up in the UK, right? It has supported the UK's real estate. So sanctions are going to hurt, yes, the oligarchs, but are they also going to have some implication on the UK?
Absolutely.
Sanctions are being imposed by America. What kind of impact are they going to have? I've seen a statement this morning as well by Barack Obama, the former president, who says, all right, economic sanctions are very, very important because it's important to have a response to Vladimir Putin and what he's doing. Also, having this kind of sanctions is also likely going to affect the global energy prices because Russia is a big player in the energy space. But this is a price we should be willing to pay for in solidarity with the people of Ukraine, standing up for freedoms and rights of everybody across the globe. So it's going to have big impact, and that is the headline that is actually being given to by the Nation this morning. Kenya's stakes in the Ukraine war. In page 2, conflict set to worsen the cost of living. Kenya is bound to feel the impact of the Russia-Ukraine war, with agriculture, education, manufacturing and retail sectors likely to suffer import and export disruptions. The conflict could hit Kenyan households hard if imports from the two countries are disrupted, resulting in shortages that could raise the cost of bread, ugali, fertilizer and machinery. Oil prices yesterday skyrocketed to the highest level since 2014, $100 a barrel, just after Vladimir Putin ordered a military operation against Ukraine. The EPRA Director General Daniel Kiptoo yesterday noted that Kenya, which holds little fuel reserve stocks due to the volatility of global crude prices, would feel the impact of the price increase almost immediately. One, if you keep large stocks of fuel when you think the prices are low, then the prices go down further. You'll have a hard time selling that stock, says Kiptoo. He said Kenya's fuel stocks can only last 10 days, meaning the higher fuel prices will be reflected in the next fuel pricing on the 14th of March, unless the government continues to apply the fuel subsidy to keep the prices low. And there is already pressure that the government should stop offering that subsidy. Kenya imports products worth billions of shillings for consumption at household level annually from the two countries. This is Russia and Ukraine. The country also imports billions of shillings worth of machines used by manufacturers, construction materials, raw materials for making packaging bags used by retailers. Of the 40.6 billion shillings products Kenya imported from Russia in 2020, based on data submitted to the UN Comrade repository official international trade statistics, wheat constituted 16.5 billion shillings, maize 989 million shillings, fertilizer 4.9 billion shillings. 8 billion shillings commodities Kenya imported from Ukraine in 2020, according to the same database. Soybeans constituted 1 billion shillings. Wheat and maize, 1.07 billion shillings. Vegetables, 655 million shillings. Sunflower seed and cotton seed oil, 434 million. So we import stuff directly from Russia and Ukraine. Now, when they are pariahed like they are being pariahed, what's going to happen to these supplies?
You know what actually concerns me is how it is that major crises on this planet have been caused by actions such as the one we're now seeing. It looks like a small quarrel, it escalates, one country invades another. And before you know it, the whole world is actually being sucked into this thing.
Yeah.
And then you suddenly have a situation that pulling away from becomes extremely difficult.
Yep.
Okay. But in all this, China is quiet.
Very, very much so. Biden was asked by a journalist yesterday after during his press briefing, are you in talks with China to see if China... he said, I'm not prepared to comment on that at the moment. Telling, isn't it?
It's very, very, very telling. Because there are those who are smart enough to sit back and wait and see where the chips fall, and they will pick up the pieces as and when they see fit. But the real tragedy is always in the human lives. People who had no stake
to do with
in this particular quarrel.
Yeah. This is it. I mean, look at the horrendous pictures we saw of people trying to get out of city yesterday. And even of, look, and these are civilians, but then even more telling of it was the soldiers who were taking that last photo because he didn't know if he was going to make it alive in the next 100 steps, telling his father and mother, look, I love you. These are people who are on the front line, who are fighting, who are waiting to be bombed, right? So even the civilians who had nothing to do with this, and truly even those who have to fight, who had nothing to do with this, you know? What happens to them?
It's going to be very tough because already Poland is saying it's setting up 5 news stations to start processing refugees who are crossing over from Ukraine. The International Red Cross has already said what we are likely to see here is something that is of epic proportions in terms of the humanitarian crisis unfolding. It's the ordinary you and I.
Who suffer?
It's the ordinary
This
you
is the
and
grass. This is the grass.
Yeah.
And for what?
Is it really justifiable?
No, it never is really. It never is. I mean, whether it is the ego, whether it is the national pride, whatever you want to call it, you look at history. At what point is it justified? I mean, how many millions of people die, and at the end of it, when you take stock of what happened, you ask, what was all this about?
Yeah,
it's interesting. Point to any major conflict that happened. On the
what is all this about?
Yeah.
Afghanistan is having a food crisis now.
A serious one.
A serious one.
Yes. All that hoo-ha. What was it for?
Let's take a break. It's 27 minutes. We shall continue this conversation when our guest joins us at 8 o'clock. What's his name?
Ibrahima Kane.
Ibrahima?
Kane.
Kane. Where is he from?
Senegal.
What does he do?
He's the Africa liaison between OSIWA, which is the Open Society in West Africa, and the African Union. So,
keep it here for more on that. We'll be talking about the impact of what's happening in Ukraine on Kenya and Africa at large. 27-7.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, a few minutes after 6:30, what are we looking at? Traffic already building up on Jogo Road today, and that started early. Uhuru Highway, not too bad, but we're likely to see that pick up as we go into the morning. Gong Road still looking pretty good, as is Raila Odinga Way. Langata Road is building up slowly. If you're on Langata Road, now it's time to get out. Southern Bypass is looking good as well. Mombasa Road, not too bad as you're coming from the SGR all the way through to General Motors. You should be all right. Folks who are leaving later then might want to think about using the ICD out towards the Southern Underpass, or the Southern Bypass. Speaking of underpasses, just there at the Pangani one on the Thika Superhighway, that's where you see the most traffic this morning. Thika Road is looking pretty good, but we know the magic that'll happen in about half an hour. It's likely to clog up, but we'll be here to tell you what that looks like. Okay, guys, traffic doesn't look too bad at this point Friday morning. Let's see what it looks like in a short while. Talk to us if you have any info that we could use on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
SpiceFM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
25 minutes to 7 City. What are you looking at?
Actually, I'm looking at something that is very disturbing. In 2017, there was a fire that engulfed Moi girls.
Yes.
Yes, there was.
Nairobi.
Yes. And 10 students died.
Yep.
Now, the young lady who was then singled out as the person who had caused this fire turned 18. She was in court. And she was handed a 5-year jail sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that didn't go down very well with the parents of...
The 10 who died?
No. They said it was too lenient. And the bitterness and the pain is something you can... It's palpable. But you see what I was looking at? I was looking at these pictures, and I was looking at the pictures of the mothers. I'm looking at the picture of this young lady, and I'm thinking, this girl didn't intend to kill her colleagues. That was not her purpose. But you see, we don't judge you with what you purpose. We judge you with the outcome. 10 young souls died. And I was thinking, there's the pain that the parents feel. Now, that isn't going to go away soon.
Yeah.
What pain do you think this girl feels?
Is she remorseful? Yes. I mean, okay, so in mitigation, what did her defense say at sentencing? Because there must be a reason why even the judicial officer just handed out a 5-year jail term. There must have been something.
It's a judge. It's one of the things that the judge said is that she looked at the whole case and he said the prosecution failed to prove the element of malice and forethought. So she was not able to find her guilty of murder.
Sure.
But of manslaughter. And then she also said she's found on 10 counts of manslaughter. Okay?
Yeah.
But the girl was remorseful. Says her aim may have been just to cause fire and burn the building without hurting anyone because she wanted it to be transferred. Remember the story?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Says, but that ill intention, unfortunately, this was a double-storied building. And so, of course, fire being what it is, it spread. And remember, if you talk about dormitories, those dormitories have mattresses. Those mattresses are some of the most inflammable things you can actually ever come across.
Yeah.
What arrested my attention was just how severe an action that isn't thought through can have such dire consequences. Because I was looking at this girl, I'm saying, she is now 18.
Yep. 5
5 years from now, she'll be 23.
Yep.
That one action, her life has changed permanently.
What class was she? Because I'm assuming since she started this prosecution, she hasn't been to school.
No. She has not been to school.
She was in Form what?
It isn't form. In what form is a 14-year-old?
Which is
Form 1 or Form 2?
Form
Yes.
1, Form 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, unless now she continues with her secondary education in prison for the next 5 years, and then she comes out at 23, and reintegration and everything else, it's, oh my goodness.
Well, it's nothing short of a change of life.
You know, it's tragedy all round.
Yes, everywhere you look at it. I mean,
think of the parents of this girl. What do you think, what hell do you think they're going through? Because this article indicates that they've tried to reach out to the parents of the girls who died.
Nobody wants to listen.
Too much bitterness. But there's one parent who said something very interesting and said, you know, even if we ask for a longer sentence, it's not going to bring our children back. Okay, it's... Now, when you look at the consequences of this, I was turning the pages and I was looking at another article that was written. Now, remember the accident that we spoke of that cost 4 lives?
Yep.
One of those people who lost their lives has been featured. So now a victim comes to life.
So now it's a story of a victim.
It's a human interest story now.
There's a face to the name.
Let's hear that story.
All right.
This is the Ngong Road accident that
This
happened
is
over
the
the weekend.
Ngong Road accident that happened on the weekend. No other story other than that one. No, even me sometimes, I read so many papers, I actually forget the one I was reading.
Was it in that or is it in another one?
I have this suspicion that I read that story in another newspaper, and I'm insisting that I find it in this particular one. And yet it isn't.
The Standard has a story on page 24. Could it be that one?
It is that story on page 24.
Not that one.
It doesn't really matter. But the point is this, when you take an individual and look at their lives, this is a 30-year-old young lady, all right?
Yeah.
The friends say, her cousin says she was reserved, but very friendly and easy to get along with, okay? Now, they lost their lives where they need not have. Simply because someone whose duty it is to ensure road safety and to ensure that the roads are in a condition that guarantees safety of lives didn't do their job. Now, do you see why it is I was saying that as far as I'm concerned, these people should be charged? Please, go ahead, Eric.
Ndu put it out very well the last time we were having this conversation. And she pointed out there was a nationwide power blackout.
Yes.
Nobody died. We thank God, even those in hospital, in ICU and all. But there was a nationwide power blackout because of vandalism, which brought down pylons in Imaradaima. Kenya power managers are in court today. Kenya power managers have been suspended without pay as they face this court case. An entire business called the scrap metal business has been suspended. I mean, serious drastic action has taken place. Appropriately.
Yes.
On this one, people have died, all right? The police themselves say 5 lives have already been lost since the beginning of this year on this particular stretch of road. 5 people have died since January to now, the 25th of February. Okay? All the Kenya Urban Roads Authority is doing is releasing that statement that they released 2 days ago on Twitter. 2 things. We are looking at how to improve the road.
We are putting
this
safety
morning,
measures.
they have put rumble strips. John, where is it that they've put those rumble strips? Near Jamhuri, the Jamhuri exit. Jamhuri grounds, the junction to Jamhuri grounds. That's all they've done so far. Rumble strips. Everything else, lighting, signage, traffic lights, marking on the road, nothing done so far.
I found the story. It's actually on page 11 of the Star. The young lady was called Catherine Achayo Mbandu. She was a quality assurance manager at Be Free Credit Management. She's a member of SITAM. Now, it's her whole story and her life story and quotations from her relatives. And there's even a picture. There are others who also died as a result of this negligence. The individual, the engineer in charge of that particular agency, has apologized.
To?
I'm going to read it. Kenya Roads Authority Director General Silas Kinoti on Tuesday apologized for opening the road before its completion. He said the agency had succumbed to public pressure. Let me read further. I apologize to the public over the Ngong Road accident that left 4 people dead. The agency regrets the accident and it's not its intention to see people die on roads. Really?
Well, we would hope it wasn't.
Yes.
Silas Kinoti is saying there was public pressure to reopen
open the road.
Which public pressure?
To open the road.
Okay, let's even assume there was public pressure. Why was there public pressure? Because there was no road. Because there were no alternatives provided by Kura. Why would there be public pressure?
Whenever a road is being built, there has to be
There must be an alternative. Yes, there must be an alternative route of passage. Even those of us who are not experts will be able to tell you there must be. That's why when you have a diversion, then you have an alternate route to use. It is clear that the reason why they were, you see, this is the problem. Now you're passing the buck and laying the blame on somebody else. Everybody knows. If there was public pressure to open that road, why was it?
What
it was
public pressure is he talking
even
about?
if there was, let's say there was, but then you ask yourself, why was there that public pressure? Because you had not provided an alternative for people to use. How many hours were people sleeping on the road on Gong Road to be able to get where they were going? Because that road had not been completed and there was no alternate. So there was this competition between traffic and the contractor and the construction on the road. So what are we talking about? Taking responsibility for action or inaction is such a thing.
You know,
Amma, I can't.
You know it's 6:45, eh?
Please, let's take a break. I can't. Please. Let's just not.
It is 6:45 in the morning.
And you're already sweating. You're annoyed.
No, Buana. No. Come on. Okay, there's Silas Kinoti. He's the boss of Kura, right? I will take it up. James Wainaina Macharia is a CS. Have you heard Macharia saying anything?
A thing.
Apart from going to visit those roads and saying this one will be completed in March, this one will be complete fastest
and
in June.
And the president is going to...
And the president is going to drive on this road, blah, 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 blah. What absolute nonsense is that we are treated to in this country? What did we do?
People have died. People have died. There's a face, there's a name to that face today.
Yes.
Right?
One.
Can you imagine the relatives of that lady?
Who is listening to this bollocks right now?
Or even just driving on the road and seeing nothing has happened. Even at least in honor of my daughter, do something.
How long does
in
it take
honor
to
of
cordon
my daughter
off?
has died, okay. Can you at least do something so that somebody else does not have to go through what I am going through now, the pain of losing my child, the pain of planning a funeral? Silas Kinoti is just saying,
Mind you, we are going into a very, very busy period named the weekend. On the same road to which nothing has been done. What would it take to cordon off that part of the road and fix it, for crying out loud? Why would it be so difficult? Then come another day, people will start crying again, because that is what is going to happen. That is what is going to happen. Here we are really looking at it in the face. And then we have this window dressing kind of PR nonsense that's going on.
First of all, who is the contractor on that road?
Who even
has
knows?
Disappeared.
Does the contractor know that they are the contractor of that road?
The person, we don't know who that person is.
We'll go on to Google just quickly. Check the distance between City Mortuary and Karen Shopping Center. Why does that stretch of road require 3 contractors? Because there are 3 contractors working between City Mortuary and Junction, 2 contractors. And then this is a different... First of all, why? Why is it that the quality of workmanship is different from one contractor A, contractor B, contractor C, all contracted by the same agency?
4.8 kilometers.
4 kilometers from City
Mortuary to Junction.
To the Junction.
Yeah.
How about from City Mortuary or to Ngong, and not to Ngong, to Karen?
Karen Shopping Center.
Karen Shopping Center.
11.6 kilometers.
11 kilometers. 3 contractors.
Yes.
Eastern Bypass from here to Roiro, the one that they are expanding into a dual carriageway. One contractor, 23 kilometers. This one, the expressway, 27 kilometers, right?
Yes.
One
contractor. So?
How many kilometers again?
11.6.
3 contractors.
Why?
And one contractor has not even been there since last year. People
and
are
as
dying.
we speak, they've not finished. People are dying. One did shoddy work halfway through the job and has also left. And they didn't even now do the dressing that you needed on the road after you finished your tarmac. Nothing like that has been done. Person has money in their pocket, walking away. And on that road to which you are supposed to have been completed, people have died. People died. And unfortunately, let's just say it as it is. Left the way it is, rumble strips or not, people will continue to die. Here you are looking at this carnage in the face, and then you're telling people that what? We had to open the road due to public pressure.
We had to open the road.
So it's actually your fault.
The contractor had to go home because of public pressure.
This is the second time they've blamed Kenyans for this thing. The first time they said, you know what, actually?
Drive carefully.
Drive carefully. Now they're saying, you know why we actually had to open is because of you.
James Wainaina Macharia, the Cabinet Secretary for Transport. This is on you, my friend. Silas Kinoti is still in that office and nothing is being done. Come on.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Chilled Spice. .5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Okay, let me just make you a little bit more angry. A new bridge that cost Kajiado County government 100 million shillings has collapsed just days after Governor Joseph Olelenku commissioned it. The Pai Bridge, which is crossing the river Orkeriai in Kajiado East, collapsed following heavy rains on Tuesday and Wednesday nights. Residents were stranded after pillars supporting the aqueduct collapsed. The bridge was meant to connect three wards: Matapato North, SLNK in Kajiado South, and Kenyawa Poka Ward in Kajiado East. Matapato is in Kajiado Central. So, three wards in three constituencies: Matapato in Kajiado Central, SLNK in Kajiado South, and Kenyawa Poka in Kajiado East. River Orkeriai breaks its banks oftentimes during the rainy seasons, cutting off residents from livestock markets and essential services, including government offices and hospitals. The bridge was also meant to help residents to access services at the Loitoktok, Kajiado, and Mashuru areas. There were no casualties, thank God. While commissioning the bridge, the governor said it would also help horticultural farmers to get their produce to the market on time. County Roads and Public Works Minister Alex Kilowa, who visited the area, termed the incident a natural calamity, as due process had been followed during construction. The bridge experienced a tilting of the pier caused by the unprecedented heavy flow of flash floods on River Olkeriai.
Eric, just stop for a while.
It's not a new river.
No, it's not a new river. You just go back a little bit and read again what this person has said and read the name of this person also.
County Roads and Public Works Minister Alex Kilowa, who visited the area, said the incident was a natural calamity because due process had been followed during construction. And this is to quote him verbatim: the bridge experienced a tilting of the pier caused by the unprecedented heavy flow of flash floods on River Olkeriai. He added the heavy rains diverted the already swollen river to one side of the pier, exerting pressure that caused it to tilt to one side. He said no money would be lost as the contract for the bridge was still within the defect liability period. He said the county had directed the contractor to start the reconstruction of the pier. We have further mobilized our engineers and consultants to assess the situation fully and give us a detailed report by Monday next week. This is a river. It's a seasonal river. It occasionally swells because of the rains, okay? In these parts of Mashuru. It's very hilly, that region. So rains go and they get into these seasonal rivers and they swell. So even by the time the county was commissioning this, they knew the nature of this river. They knew what occasionally happens when there's heavy rains. There's going to be flash floods. So the contractor received a brief knowing full well what happens with this river. The contractor must have done some environmental impact assessment and all, and also studied the flow of the water and all, and realized this is what is likely to happen in the event of a flash flood. One flash flood, bridge gone.
Was there a bridge on this particular spot before this new one was built? We don't know.
We don't know.
But for them to have built a bridge, it must have been necessary. You know, even as he's speaking, I know of many parts of this country where there are flash floods. And you will find bridges that have been there for God knows how many years. And they survive all those flash floods. So you are telling me that one flash flood, one,
brought it down.
One. No. And then this gentleman wants to tell us that due diligence was followed. Due diligence was not followed. It's really as simple. There's no way due diligence was followed. When people put up bridges, one of the things they want to understand is the possible stresses that that bridge could actually have to face and hold and thereafter endure. So you build it with that in mind. Now, One flash flood, bridge gone. Aye? No.
It's hard to imagine. It's hard to even try and figure it out. Because so many people, the questions that come, 100 million shillings bridge is not pocket change, right? So if that kind of infrastructure, that meant that hopefully that you were using top-notch quality in terms of expertise and also in terms of material, and that you did the due diligence in terms of what was needed. Like you say, a bridge was needed over a body of water.
Yes.
So there must have been some assessment that was done. You don't just come and say, okay, here, river, erect a bridge over it. No, you study the movement and pattern of the water body, and then you know what to do. Again, solutions. Because what you're trying to do is get people to cross from one place to the other. So it's not just walking traffic, it's vehicular traffic and others, right? So you would have done an assessment. Because from what we are told, erecting the bridge is the easy part. Figuring out how you're going to do this is what then would appear to be difficult, and we would hope that that had been done. So now you spend all that money, you spend all those resources, you spend all that time doing it, and then in how long it falls apart?
Not so long. Just 10 days.
Okay. We had small men.
just 10 days
but
after
I think
construction.
Also, it's fortuitous. You know why? Imagine if it had been longer and we get to a period when a lot of people are using the bridge and then this happens.
It's true. Look, we're grateful.
It collapsed on its own.
But then it's also now making, as we say, shine your eye for you to say, wait a minute. So how many other things of this nature have been constructed and maybe are not fit for use?
Although, the answer to that is very many.
Very many. Stella's Homentas on is this Facebook says, pity party, please don't spoil our day. Take a break or say a prayer.
Spoil the day.
We took the break, we said a prayer. Why? Because he says, maybe you guys should do research before spewing your lamentation. Name those constructors, how much they were paid, and the terms of the contract. That way, we take you seriously. Okay. Kura.go.ke, projects, ongoing projects. Number 2, row 2, Nairobi. Length of kilometers, 9.8. Project description, dualling of Ngong Road, Dagoretti Corner to current roundabout section. Progress status, 91% complete. How much is the contract sum? 2.38 billion shillings. Who is the contractor? China, Xinjiang International Group, Kenya Limited. All the other questions answered?
I think answered in full.
And then let the lamentations continue.
Yeah.
Because now that you have all that information, does it make the situation better? Or has this girl or these others who died come back to life? No. And that's the problem. Because you don't get upset enough about these things, and then they feel as though they can continue doing shoddy work back and forth. Get upset. Lament. That is the only way people are going to start to pay attention.
That road, as you see it, between Junction and Karen, it is 91% complete.
Imagine. It's 91%. Hey, God. It's 91% complete.
But Eric, why are you surprised?
As good as usable.
At least the expressway is 87% complete, and at other times it's
78%.
At other times 82.
Have you been to that area around from Karen Shopping Center, coming towards Lenana, between Lenana and Karen Shopping Center? Is there a proper dual carriage all the way?
What? Man, there's a stretch there of the road is so uneven.
It's 91% complete. What do you see?
So that's what 91% looks like.
That's what 91% looks like.
It's just 9%.
Now come from Lenana to Dagoretti Corner.
That is also 91%
complete. The 9% is just traffic lights. You know, those small things.
You know that road is...
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the Situation Room. Keep it right here for more. We'll have conversations around what we expect now after the Sagana 3. It's still in the headlines, so we'll discuss it coming up in the next hour. We are lamenting because of what the state of the road on Ngong Road, that stretch between Dagoretti Corner and the current roundabout, which Kura says is 91% complete. Contractor, we don't know what it says. It's 7 a.m.
spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is Muthui. I'm Dennis Aseto. The Jubilee Party has conducted a facelift of its headquarters ahead of this weekend's planned National Delegates Convention. The party headquarters in Pangani, Nairobi, was yesterday awash with activity as new changes were effected all over the building. The old symbols and colors were brought down with the new ones put up. The new symbol and slogan presumably indicate severed ties with Deputy President William Ruto, who has since moved on to form the United Democratic Alliance after his fallout with President Uhuru Kenyatta. And Orange Democratic Movement Party leader Raila Odinga has called on political parties aligned with the ideologies of the Azimio la Umoja movement to join forces ahead of the August 9th polls. Odinga implored the One Kenya Alliance principals to mount their support with the Azimio in order to forge a united coalition in the next government. The presidential hopeful spoke Thursday during the Cyrus Jirongo-led United Democratic Party's NDC at Multimedia University and later at the CS Peter Munya-led PNU NDC at the Bomas of Kenya. While laying emphasis on the importance of coalitions in post-independence Kenya, the former premier stated that no leader could stand alone and address the needs of all countrymen. Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muthui, has asked President Uhuru Kenyatta not to engage in party politics after his term ends so that his legacy remains untainted. Muthui said it will be best for President Uhuru to leave Jubilee Party politics when he retires so that his name is not drawn into political mudslinging that is common in party politics. He said the president has done a great job to carry his legacy into the future and it should be best to remain that way. Muthui was reacting to suggestions made by Jubilee operatives that President Uhuru Kenyatta should remain at the party hierarchy after the expiry of his term. And the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council has revoked the operating license for the Sipili Maternity and Nursing Home following an expose which documented allegations of sexual assault against members of staff in the public at the institution. According to a statement, Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council ordered the closure of the facility and directed the hospital to transfer all the inpatients to the other facilities of their choice within 24 hours pending the hearing and determination of the matter. The body's boss, Yumbia, further instructed Sipili Maternity and Nursing Home Director George Mbugwa to appear before a joint inquiry of various health regulatory bodies Monday, where the matter will be heard and determined. And Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has appealed to the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers to suspend the call to their members to strike over salary increment and allow the students in the country to sit for their national examinations. The Education CS pleaded with the union, who had issued a strike notice terming it untimely as the national examination officially starts Monday, March 7, 2022. This, is said, would disrupt the smooth progression of the exams. The CS encouraged the Teachers Service Commission Secretary Dr. Nancy Macharia and the TSC board to continue to engage with the union, negotiating in a bid to resolve the strike. And the former student at the Moi Girls High School in Kibra has been sentenced to 5 years in jail for manslaughter. The student has been found guilty of igniting a fire which led to the death of 10 of her colleagues in 2017. The families of the deceased students have, however, termed the judgment as a slap on the wrist. High Court Judge Stella Mutuku says the accused did not start the fire with the intention of killing her schoolmates, but did so in a desperate attempt to get transferred from the school by any means. In 2017, 10 girls were burned to death at the Moi Girls High School in an incident that left families demanding answers. The Form 1 student was in 2017 freed on a 200,000 shillings cash bail, pending the hearing and determination of the case in proceedings that were held in camera. The families of the victims who were present in court termed the 5-year sentence as lenient. 42 witnesses testified in the case in which the defendant was found guilty in 10 counts of manslaughter. And the Kenya Red Cross Society has plans to conduct a disaster simulation exercise in Busia County. The Kenya Red Cross Disaster Officer, Peter Murgor, explained that the exercise is a test on how people can be helped to take action before they are affected by floods. Murgor pointed out that Bunyalasad County is the most affected by floods, hence the need to test some of the protocols that have been set by the organization. And finally, Britain has imposed a biting package of sanctions on Russia that Prime Minister Boris Johnson said will degrade its economy for years to come, as it slammed President Vladimir Putin in unusually personal terms. More on this story in our subsequent bulletins. My name is Dennis Assetto. Good morning.
All right, Thika Super Highway coming into the city. We have bumper-to-bumper traffic, and this just past the drive-in, and that connection from Outer Ring, we see that has piled up quite some. And also on Kiambu Road this morning, in and outbound traffic as you're getting towards the Pangani underpass. Outer Ring then leading to Thika Super Highway, and then leading in the direction towards Thika Town also seems to be clogging up just a little bit. On Limuru Road, in and outbound traffic as well. And we're looking at Ring Road Westlands, that whole area, Parklands out towards Waiyaki Way. Quite some traffic this morning. All right, what's happening on Mombasa Road? Not looking too bad at all. Free flowing traffic. North Airport Road is going to pile up just a little bit. Around the Maritime inbound, we'll have some traffic there already. Langata Road not looking too bad today, but that's piling up as you get towards Raila Odinga Way, out onto Ngong Road. A few minutes after 7 o'clock, let's take a look at about half hour and see what it looks like. Talk to us, let's keep Friday moving. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
Oh yes, good morning.
This
It's
is the
7 minutes to
Situation
7.
Room,
It's a
the
lovely
only way to
Friday.
start your
It's the
day.
25th day of February 2023. We are counting down to 22.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
not yet there.
Yeah.
So you're saying we're
We're
counting down
awake.
to that year.
We're awake.
Counting down to a couple of days when the president will be driving. Hopefully it's a G-Wagon. From the Machakos Junction to Maimahio Junction. Complete in the month of March.
The G-Wagon.
Anytime.
That won't happen.
Wow.
If it happens at all, it'll happen around June.
If it happens at all, CT.
It'll happen around, if at all.
It'll happen around June.
Okay.
You know,
when the president says things, may I believe him?
Oh, I believe him, all right, but I disbelieve the people who actually give him the information. You see, he's saying it from a position of faith because that's what he's been told, and these are the people who he has appointed to carry out these tasks. So he has no reason not to believe them. However, you don't need to be an engineer. You don't even need to understand construction to tell that this particular expressway is far from being complete. Far. It's not that near, far.
I'd actually dare say that the expressway is closer to completion than the section between Westlands and Rironi. That one. Westlands to Maimahio Junction. There are people who were born somewhere, pick an area there. Regen, where Kikuyu. Children were born. Children have started going to school, to kindergarten, and they think that's how roads look like. If you tell them that's a road, that they think that's how
what
roads-
road is. So
That's
now
what
take
road
them
is.
to another part of the country where a road actually has been completed, and they will be like in a metaverse experience.
Born, gone to kindergarten, cross road every morning to school and back. They believe that's what a road is. We have a guest in the studio. Before we introduce him, let's hear the day's proverb from City.
Yes, this is an Algerian proverb. As we didn't say a word, he thought he could do anything he liked.
Kura.
Silas Kinoti.
Because people have not been talking.
James Masharia. We didn't say a word.
Yes.
I was like,
Don't worry.
You Chinese contractor, you just go home.
Yes.
Chill. We'll give you another job.
We'll talk to you later.
This one is 91% done. That's a pass mark.
I mean, by Kenyan standards.
Your child goes to school and they bring 91. Won't you say, well done, my child?
Yes. Road is complete. Dennis Ndombi is a politician. He's a security expert, and he joins us in the studio. Dennis, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you so much
Kenya's
for having
biggest
me.
conversation. Welcome to the hot seat. You're a politician. You are the vice chairperson of the Agano Party.
Absolutely.
You have also contested for electoral office before. In 2017.
2017, right.
You wanted to be Senator of Nairobi.
Senator of Nairobi.
How did you fare?
I think I collected some 30k votes, but more importantly is that I was pleased because by the grace of God I admitted myself into the school of politics. And Nairobi being the Jerusalem of politics, then you get to have a bird's eye view on matters national. You get to understand the internal dealings and pleadings that shape or rather steer the navigation of this country. And it's a good place to be. And I think I keep on telling people that perhaps if you really want to understand the intricacies of politics in this country, even admit yourself to be an MCA of your village ward, then you will understand whether democracy in this country is non-existent, whether it's progressive to a certain degree, whether perhaps we've achieved the 20 or 30 or 50% or 60%. And truly, the status or the status of the soul of this nation, you know, and where we are, if it's a health check, or whether this nation is sick, or it's healthy, or it's in ICU.
So what did your experience teach you about our democracy?
My goodness, I believe in progressive democracy, but I think that it's not at Uhuru in this country. There is a lot that needs to be done. We have one of the best progressive constitutions in the world, but we have the worst political culture in the world. And I think there's a dichotomy and there's a wrestling match between our political culture and what we put down on paper. And what our constitution paints is a complete, picture when you look at what it is that we do in practice, how we handle our money, how the premium that we put on life, whether Kenyan goes to a hospital for recovery or death or whatever it is that there is. We are pleased every afternoon for the last 2 years to announce the death of Kenyans as if it's something that is progressive. And we eat money that is even meant for the dead, and we don't care whether this country progresses or not. We really care that we get to drive G-Wagons in the best and the most expensive roads that you actually need an air ticket to drive on. So I think that's where the nation is. And but I have hope that there's a generation that is sensitive to democracy. And there's a generation in this country that is watching and waiting. And there's a generation that will arise. And I can tell you that generation is not only a civilian generation. That generation is also serving in our military. That generation is also serving in our police forces. That generation is serving in our judiciary. And something good will happen to this nation. The trajectory will change towards a beautiful sunrise.
What will it take for that good to happen?
I think by virtue that we have the ability to sustain hashtags for 2 days on lower food prices. And yesterday I was in Mathare, and I just wanted to know whether this kind of conversation has touched base, and whether the lower food prices is a class issue, whether there are some who are feeling the pinch, or the pinch is across the board, but it is intense in some quarters. And they are aware that there was something that was going on, and they are sensitive to it. But however, the tragedy was that their hope currently is on handouts. They said they wait day and night for a politician to come and give them 500 shillings so that they can be able to eat. The nature and the depth of desperation in this country is grand. And I think, when you look at it, that today in this nation, the rich are not sleeping because the poor can't sleep, and we have walls and 14 German shepherds in one compound, whatever it is that there is, 14 CCTVs, so we are at a breaking point. And if we are not sensitive to check and audit the underbelly of this nation, then we get to a disposition where extra constitutional means by the civilian force, by those in the military, by those in the police force, including those in the judiciary, will be something that will be inevitable. I was at the African Union at the 40th it was actually the 40th ordinary session by the heads of state and the executive committee. The executive committee, I believe it was the 35th session. One of the things that came to fore was that there was the rise of coups in Africa. And when you see a nation that is blessed in resources, both material and human, rising to coups, then you know that the democratic environment and landscape of Africa is retrogressing. And Africa then has become a pass and an enterprise for a few oligarchies and autocrats, and in partnership with the West, the East, and whatever it is that there is to bleed this continent to nothing more than a mere shibboleth that may not survive the century.
Let me take you back to something that you mentioned regarding the youth and the hope that you are placing on the youth.
Yes, sir.
It is always the hope of every generation to hope that the generation that comes after them will do better than they have done.
Mm-hmm.
But when you take into consideration the power of example and just how much that influences the people whom we are hoping to hand the mantle over to, what is it about the young generation that you think is unique to the point where they would look at this generation and realize that the last thing they want to do is to follow what this generation has done, and that they want to chart a new path? What is it that you see in them that points in that direction?
One of the beautiful things about this generation is that they cannot be mobilized tribally. The millennials are interesting. They look for opportunities. When you look at the DNA that formats them, is that they look for their own information, consume their own information, chart their own paths. And therefore, when any tribal leader is discussing politics tribally, they don't look at it in any other way. They are educated, they are informed, they are running the digital economy, they chart their path, they establish their own economy at the end of the day. And they are riotous politically. When you look at what it is that we call the protest vote in the country, is largely shaped by the millennials. They would vote any direction that they please, They would refuse to participate, not because that it's not participation. Protest is also participation.
Are you referring to millennials within the big cities or the big towns of the country, or millennials throughout the country?
Throughout the country. You need to understand that even though I may live in a peri-urban or rural area, I have access to a phone. By that virtue, then, I become part of a community that is aware, a community that is live, a community that is that consumes its own information, not necessarily from a politician who's detached or corrupt. And I can access. When I was growing up, the only way I would know about Nairobi, and I grew up in the village, was if I had friends from Nairobi. But nowadays, a young person from Gatanga has a mobile phone, is able to know that Putney is in Ukraine. They don't need to be informed by anybody. Is able to consume their own information. Is able to study online. they are preserved from what is wrong in this nation. And we may think that they are not registering to vote or they are not voting. But in nations that are progressive, the white or the protest vote is political participation in one way or the other. So I believe, and I was talking to my friends in the military because my background is security. And I was telling them, you have to be very careful that the military must be apolitical. Because there's a generation that you can't mobilize it in a particular way. And they hate what is unjust. Because they are being, socioeconomically, they are being punished by the system perhaps more than anybody else. You know? So yesterday I was in the ghetto and I interacted with the youth, you know? And they are alive to this injustice. And they will not be party to it. Nobody's going to mobilize them towards injustice.
So then, as we're heading to the 2022 general election, what's happening? If the IEBC can roll out a voter registration exercise and nets only about 1.5 million new voters, so 2 million new voters, what does that say?
The basket that IBC had available to register as new voters was 9 million. They also had the opportunity to net a workforce in diaspora that is 4 million strong. But I believe registrations are still below 10,000, thereabout. So political participation is not only by virtue of voting, you know. And voting does not qualify me to the Bill of Rights. Neither lack of voting does not disqualify me from the Bill of Rights. I believe in every other way. I have instruments within the constitutional framework that ask me to be engaged within, you know, the utensils of public participation, you know. And it's unfortunate that many people sometimes don't feel that or the ballot does not change their economic framework.
But then,
however, the 22 million registered voters now, the largest majority of this nation is youth. And therefore, that very block is still youth at the end of the day. It's still a youthful block. So you can't say that the youth are not registered as voters.
Yeah,
the largest block of them are registered as voters. And also the largest block of them are also not registered as voters. And I think that's a dynamic there is. But voting in August, and the political class makes sure that they are not desirable of a large voting block, because if you have 9 million strong registered voters, I can assure you they are discontented voters. And therefore, powers in the day would not be desirable that they have 9 million voters who are displeased of the current services.
Do I hear you to be saying that instead of voter registration, that what we witnessed was voter registration suppression?
There was, by the way, I participated and I tried to mobilize the diaspora. And I can assure you there was a suppression from IBC. And
how do you mean? How was this?
Because they, you know, the Bill of Rights says that your rights shouldn't be denied by any unreasonable reasons, you know. So when you look at, for example, let me give an example of the US and the UK. The law says that a polling station should not surpass 600, 700. But you find that many Kenyans, the polling stations were so few and so far off that you have to spend your $1,000 to go and register, you know, at the end of the day. Then registration documents, they came and said you can only register with your ID, while it's not even constitutional to give that kind of guidelines. So many of the guys in the diaspora, you understand about the issues and the questions on paperwork at the end of the day. And their passports, no, so they said you can only vote, you can only register with your passport. Some of the passports were expired and many other things. So there were many dynamics that forced a Kenyan to fork up to up to almost about $1,000 for them to be able to vote.
Okay, why would somebody be out there with an expired passport? What are the reasons why they have not renewed their passport?
Inadequacies of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I mean,
so
if you have...
so this is not IEBC's doing, because you said that there was suppression by IEBC.
You see,
if
what
somebody
happens
does
is
not have a valid passport, And that is a requirement.
But
The
I have an
requirement
idea.
for registration is...
I have an idea.
Yes.
The Constitution says any identification document. So when you, as a commission, comes and says you can only register with a passport
In the diaspora.
in the diaspora, then essentially what you do is that you only commit me to 1 year of registration, which is not constitutional. You should say any identification document that is recognized by law and by the Constitution should be able to get to register you. And then when you look at the inadequacies of renewing the passport by our embassies, technically, they are not as efficient as possible. Sometimes it takes a very long time to get that process renewed. So there were, and the logistical aspect, surely, when you look at the Scandinavian countries, you know, you have several countries, but they say we will only have one location in Germany, you know. So you have to come from Norway or from Sweden so that you can go and register as a voter in another country, you know. So the nature of inconvenience at the end of the day was too grand. And I think that some of these decisions were taken in boardrooms and they amount to voter suppression. And they went to court and the court translated that, look, any document including the ID, you can register with it. And that was 2 weeks deep into a regulated registration. You know, so there are issues, I believe, that they need to be checked.
You know what I find strange, though, is something as important as a passport. We can point fingers at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but the onus is on the passport holder. I mean, if I have a passport and I'm out of the country and it's about to expire, the onus is not on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to ensure that that passport is updated. It is me.
I agree.
Yes.
Even today, try and go and register for a new passport in the country. Just attempt to register, and you see how easy it is.
It's not difficult.
Well, I'm assuring you, it's extremely expensive also for any Kenyan.
Explain to me. What do you mean by how expensive? Beyond just the cost of getting a passport, or
the process in itself has been made digital. There's an increment in terms of what it is that we used to pay before to what it is that we pay now, even though the cost of living has increased. And number two, the process is more rigorous than it used to be before. You know. Number three, for your passport to come out, there's no definite timeline. I have friends who have registered for passports now, and it's 2, 3, 4, 5 months deep for them to receive the passport, you know. So it shouldn't be laborious for a Kenyan to apply that which identifies them as Kenyan. Because by the time I'm applying for a passport, it means I have the urgency of travel. Therefore, it shouldn't inconvenience me in many other ways. But also, if I'm in diaspora, I'm in the US, and I know my passport is expiring, then I have to go to the embassy and submit it for renewing. I cannot specify when that passport will be ready. You know, that process is out of my hands. It's in the hands of government. And then there's a registration process. And then that's the only other document that I have the ability to register for an election with. So there are administrative functions that are out of the scope of a Kenyan. And they can't really, help it by then.
I think it makes sense to actually question why only recognize a valid passport. If you're a Kenyan and the agency that's registering you is a Kenyan and you're going to a Kenyan embassy or Kenyan consulate to register, you can't be
subjected to just having a passport.
I mean, nobody can argue that, in this country they don't recognize the Kenyan ID.
Well,
I'm not registering for this
foreign
country.
process.
I'm registering with IEBC, which is Kenyan.
So
Let's take a break at this point. It's 29 after 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Dennis Ndumbi is a politician. He's a vice chairperson of Agano Party. He is also a security expert. We started by just looking at the lay of the land in terms of politics from his own perspective. Then the conversation we'll be having shortly is implications of the Sagana 3 meeting in not just Mount Kenya, but to all the political formations as we head towards the 2022 general election. Keep it right here. Let's take a look at the weather and traffic. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room The only way to start your day.
There are so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
He's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafandi umbo yako iko na pembe.
Nini umba special.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi, currently at 15. We'll see highs of 24 and back down to lows of 15 today. It's partly sunny at 14 in Nakuru, highs of 26 and lows of 13. 24 will be the high in Nyeri. It's sunny at 14 and we'll see lows of 12. And 13 degrees and sunny in Eldoret, highs of 24 today. Partly sunny at 27 in Mombasa. 32 will be the high, lows of 26. We're looking at sunny conditions in Malindi as well at 27, highs of 31 and lows of 25. Partly sunny conditions at 20 in Kisumu, highs of 28 and lows of 19. And we'll see the sun out in Kakamega at 16, currently highs of 29. In Kampala, it's sunny at 22, highs of 26 and lows of 19. And we're looking at mostly cloudy conditions in Dar es Salaam. 31 will be the high, lows of 25. It's sunny at 14 in Johannesburg, 26 highs and lows of 14. Now it's raining in Lagos at 27, highs of 34 and lows of 26. And it's mostly cloudy in Kinshasa this morning, highs of 33 and lows of 24.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Building up on Langata Road this morning, quite something as you're getting to that roundabout. Raila Odinga Way is going to take some of that, as well as Ngong Road going towards Community and then spilling over onto Haile Selassie Avenue. Coming from the other side as well, we see some action coming from the Kamkunji roundabout, and that feeds off Landis Road, which is not too sticky, but where it is quite a mess already is Jogo Road, and we're also looking at it coming off of the other parts of the eastern side of the city. Lunga Lunga started from Monday, and that still continues with the bumper-to-bumper in and outbound traffic. Outer Ring, taking off Kangundo Road, coming off Manyanja Road, going then towards and taking off Juja Road. Quite some traffic as you head towards the thicker highway, superhighway, which incidentally is packed, jumping with traffic, bumper to bumper, all the way into the city. We're also looking at Kiambu Road, which is quite packed as well, and Limuru Road. So it's your normal Friday morning traffic, stickier in some places than others. But let's get through without too much of a scratch, shall we? And then let's talk. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's 27 today. Eric Latiff, Ndu Okoh, CT Muga, and Dennis Ndumbi. Vice Chairperson of the Agano Party, politician, security expert, and he says in 2017 he threw his hat in the ring, wanted to vied for the position of Nairobi Senator, got some 30,000 people to endorse that bid. And you say this is, Nairobi is the Jerusalem of Kenya's politics.
Yes.
In other words, Nairobi is the main campus of the Kenya Institute for Character Development in politics.
Indeed.
Dennis, we have seen what's happening this week.
Yes.
President hosts a meeting of leaders from Mount Kenya, speaks his mind. He's the only one who spoke in that meeting, has been widely covered in what he said, I have done what my deputy has not done, and why I am campaigning for the opposition leader to succeed me. And then, of course, we've seen the reaction from all camps. What do you read from that?
Wow, I think interesting developments and a very good time to be alive in this country. I think because the kind of progression and development we are seeing within the political sphere is something that we haven't seen before, you know. But Sagana 3, of course, which was touted as a mountain-shaking earthquake, you know, something that was never seen before. Perhaps a new 15th wonder of the mountain, or whatever it is, then turned out to be a dangerous onslaught, especially, allow me to start there, towards the institution of the church. I'm saying this because of the political progression of the president back in 2013. You remember that he was you know, he had charges with the ICC. He was called Mlevi Mkora. The institution that held him strongly was the church. But now the church, as he said, he has condemned the church to Jahannam, you know, one way or the other, on a public platform.
Did he?
How?
Yes.
How exactly did he do this?
Sorry?
How did he do this? Condemn the church?
Well, he spoke some strong things, strong allegations.
What did he say?
He said specific things. Number one, that church leaders are lying to his people or our people. Number one. Number two, that the church is collecting money that was meant for dams. And out of that, singing hallelujah. And that in itself is corruption money. And by virtue that the church is lying, he didn't say what the lies were, is lying to the people of the mountain, then they will go to hell.
No, he didn't say that, Dennis.
Yes, he did.
He said, if I was to remember and loosely translate from what he was speaking, he said, you church leaders, you're also partly to blame because you welcome these people to your churches. They come and they donate money that should have helped the children of West Pokot in getting dams and water. And they come and you take those billions while they come holding the Bible and singing hallelujah. That the people that you are preaching to are not the ones who will go to Jahannam. It is these ones.
His opening statement.
He was not saying
Eric.
that it's the church leaders that will go to Jahannam. He said it's the thieves who are donating the money.
No. Kikuyu is my language. He started by saying, you church leaders, stop lying to our people. His opening statement on that attack.
Yeah.
And he said that the church is collecting money that was meant for dams. And those dams are supposed to feed water to God's people elsewhere and whatever it is that there is. Now, the onslaught went on and on and on. And I can provide verbatim to it and translate, and it will be accurate to what I'm saying. But however, we take that as an unfortunate onslaught for various reasons. Number one, the church has never lied to anyone. The church has provided the access to politicians as Christians and as worshippers to speak to their fellow Christians. The church in itself has never stood to be political. In Central, there is no single bishop who holds a political rally.
No.
Any politician is allowed to come to the church and say whatever it is that there is. And I don't remember any one particular disparaging comment that was done on any pulpit of the church. Number two, when you talk about churches collecting money that is meant for dams at the end of the day, you understand the disposition of the DPP, the matter that is the way the issue has been handled in its own self. What the DPP said about Arao Kimboro, the president himself is in charge of treasury and cabinet, you know. So he basically used the principle of a lie to attack the church. And we, the people of the mountain, feel that that comment in itself was misadvised and it was unnecessary based on the principle that there isn't any factual accusation that you can put on the table and say that the money that these politicians may have brought to build the churches or whatever it is can be qualified as corruption money by any virtue through any court of law or any constitutional jurisdiction that the church has taken any corrupt money whatsoever, based on the example that he used in itself.
Okay, so is that a primary? Is that a primary bone of contention that we're looking
It's a
at?
primary bone of
Just hold
contention.
on.
Sorry.
So what essentially we're saying is that the way in which it all began, from your point of view, was based on a lie. So does that then counter anything else that he would have said beyond that?
What happens is that when you look at, I began and I said, when you look at his political progression in the mountain, the institution and the constituency that held him the most, based on what he was going through, was the institution of the church. You remember the meetings in Ruiru. You remember the declarations that he did in his own self. And the church today, unless it's something that you can qualify, cannot be said to be corrupt, attacking the church in public. And I think the place as a president of the country, if you feel that the church is out of line, you would have mobilized them properly and spoke to church elders, which you know personally, and call them out on whatever it is that you need to be called them out. Call them out on the truth, discuss truthfully.
Not in the manner in which he did
Not in the
yesterday.
manner which he did, which
So
is based on a lie and which is based on an angry thief.
So is that the issue? Is that the issue, or is it
It's,
an issue?
you know,
We're
you know-
saying, and upon that, is there then some animosity that's being held? Is that
Exactly.
the issue that we saw? All that was said yesterday, it is how he started it and spoke of the church that is now being held in contention, and everything else then essentially will be tossed out the window.
But Ndu, to add on to what you're saying, when you say the church is not political, the church is political.
It's one of the most political institutions
Established
in the country.
on the planet.
I'll explain.
But let me say what I want to say, then you can explain what you want to explain. When you use a church platform and you allow politicians to greet the people, it is fine. They congregate. But when they start politicizing and talking their politics from a church pulpit, then what have you turned the church into? And this is what we see very often in very many churches, not just in the mountain. We see it all over the country. Yes.
I agree.
And there's no one political party or group that you can say they are the ones who've done it more than others. It happens with all politicians.
You know, the church is ecclesia, is a parliament that we go and discuss our issues, we ratify them and we pass them. The pastor is not more entitled to the pulpit more than you, the community leader, is.
Actually, he is.
You know, no. There is no such law, even biblically. You know, the church is a place for the priest and the king. The king is the one in politics or any kind of leadership. So it is fine, you as a community leader, for you to come. And by the way, you need to realize in Central, we have readings. The readings will tell you the chief said this. The agriculture officer said this. We are going to have a meeting on all the farmers on this particular day. The church is the largest in Central Province or in Gema, is the largest governmental mobilization tool that there has always been.
So it is political.
So it is political. What I'm saying is that the priest, the attack was designed to the priest rather than the politician. So the priests themselves, they don't have the political disposition because their work. No, what I'm saying is that you're not going to find a priest saying, vote for this person. Vote, don't do this, don't do this. They offer the platform for anybody else who needs to be offered the platform.
Do the priests have a responsibility to question the source of donations? Especially when it's in the public domain that there are questionable sources of donations.
I believe that we have constitutional frameworks that their work is to fight corruption. And I believe that any person who will be duly charged, if justice is properly dispensed, then they'll be out of office.
What do you say to when we saw the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops releasing a statement, the Archbishop of the Anglican Church as well, saying we are going to check the kind of donations that are brought to us. We are going to say that if you are donating, you shall give us a check so that check then has gone through the entire process. of verification of the source, and then there's a tracing back of where the money comes from. What do you make of that?
You know, fundraising are in the public spheres. If you come and give us 14 million, the DCI has seen. It's not a private affair. The EACC has seen. They're obligated to come and do whatever questions that they need to do. If the church receives a piece of land, for example, if you look at President Moi, who was big in building churches, their institutional framework is both moral and ethical. It can question anyone. The church does not operate in a vacuum outside of this country. It's the same funds that build the school or build the dispensary are the same funds that will build the church. You know? So it's done in the open.
Yeah.
It's announced, which that aspect is like an election. You know, there's the aspect of credibility because it's not opaque. The church has never received money in private. That has been said. The church has received 1 billion shillings from a politician privately, and the sources are known because it was a private dealings. The church, it's an open process that anyone, whether you have your 100 shillings, what makes you think that 100 shilling is less corrupt than 1 billion shillings?
The 1 billion.
You know, at the end of the day.
Beyond
I don't know, maybe you're a banker and your 500 shillings was something that you lifted off the till, you know. But, you know, only God can know these things. But however, I'm saying that whether the money is corrupt or not, the church participated in ensuring that we have strong institutions. You understand? And these institutions are supposed to help every Kenyan and all Kenyan to be just and righteous before God and before fellow man.
Get it.
So if those institutions are not doing their work,
with what the president said with regards to
the church has an issue with what he said.
Beyond that,
so there are other issues that
the president also spoke about other things.
Yes.
Said the leadership the youth have been lied to in terms of his track record, in terms of his development in the region. And he was saying that those who are leading the charge in lying to the people are the deputy president and his supporters in the region.
Some of those things, they need to be factual. Because when were the youth lied to and exactly what were they told? And when were they told this? One of the things I can tell you is that, Sagana 1 and 2, especially 2, the MP said something critical. They said, look, we have less development in the mountain. We supported you the most. The people are really crying for developments. And so the president said by himself, please come with a book written, all the nature of all developments that you want. The MPs came with that book, and I can tell you, none of those developments were instituted to date. The second promise that was done was that we will do a Mount Kenya tour, launching and speaking about those developments. None of it was done. When you look at Sagana 1 and 2, it was the same list of people that were invited. Both 1 and 2 have never had any development tangent towards the mountain whatsoever. I can challenge anybody to say what developments were birthed from Sagana 1 and 2. Number 3, when we come to Sagana 3, the most interesting thing that you will see was the quorum was different. You understand? And the disposition of the president was different. Then there was the absence of local leaders to a degree that was worrying. 3/4 of the elected leaders in Mount Kenya never showed up. Whether you're talking about governors, whether you're talking about MCAs or MPs or senator, they never showed up to that meeting. But to a certain degree, for example, I spoke to one of the elected leaders within the same place that the Sagana is. And they said, you know what? Because we know that there was some money that was going to be given, we sent our people to receive something to eat because there's an issue.
So they chose not to go.
They chose not to go because of the nature of alignment that is within what is that we call electoral volatility towards the president's disposition. You understand? So there is an issue that we can't ignore. The issue is that it's not that the people are objecting to the president himself as a son of the mountain or as a leader of the mountain. They value him as a person. They have objected to the choices of the president and the choices that the president is bringing to the mountain by himself.
Which choices? Can I just ask you right there? Which choices are we talking about?
Number one,
not palatable.
You realize that the split in the mountains started happening when there was a handshake and there was a progression of the handshake. You know, and because for various things is that number one, there was very little public participation within the mountain itself. It was a surprise to many, and because he partnered with one of the biggest aggressors towards the mountain, and he admitted that himself during Sagana 3. He said the reason why I shook Raila's hand because he burnt your kiosks. He did this. There was a great assault against you as the people of the mountain, you know. And sometimes I even removed money from my pockets and made sure that we replaced your kind of business that was vandalized by the mobilization, the dangerous political mobilization of Raila Odinga. He said this in person. And so, because there has been in many election circles, the assault from Raila and the radicalization from the politicians against him, so the people of the mountains felt, basically Gema Nation felt, no, I don't think that's where we want to go as a mountain at the end of the day. We have no explanation. You realize that Sagana 2, he attempted to explain. Sagana 3, he has explained a bit. So there has been that contention.
Do you think that explanation that he gave was then sufficient? Because he came in and said, yes, I admit, even I participated in calling him Kimondo.
Exactly.
But for the sake of the country, for the sake of peace and tranquility in this country, we had to shake hands. But he also went on to say, you've been lied to. You've been told that I did this thing kichini without anybody else's knowledge. One of the first people that I spoke to when I was considering meeting with Raila, and the last person that I spoke to as I walked into Harambee House was William Ruto, my deputy.
I agree. One of the things...
But he says, William Ruto has been coming here saying he was never aware of this handshake and that the handshake has taken over our relationship. And he challenged and said, show me how.
Eric.
I never changed the structure of my government. My government with William Ruto was shared positions in government. I never fired any of William Ruto's people from my cabinet.
Well,
I never did all these things. And he said, show me how my meeting with Raila then disenfranchised Ruto. Do you think,
Eric,
by posing that, by putting the issue out there, then he has shed the light?
One of the things is a principle that is very rife in the mountain that is called Kehoto. It's called the truthful reasoning. We sit and we reason, and we articulate what it is that we reason. Don't come back and speak otherwise after we have cut that covenant. And the president, in the first and the second term, he told people that the one that I want to succeed me is this particular person. Kumi yangu, kumi yako. That was Kehoto number 1. You understand? Based on the kind of persecution that the president was going through, he told the mountain vehemently that the one that has stood with me and the one that is protecting me is William Samoei Ruto. He chose him for the first term. He chose him overwhelmingly for the second term, even though Raila repressed part of the country and they never voted anyway. And you realize that the dip between the first vote and the second vote was just a mere 34%. There was a lot of persecution that the president went through. And the politician who never left the president's side was His Excellency William Samoei Ruto. And that was a covenant that was agreed from the president to the people of the mountain. So now, based on that, the mountain people are honest, truthful, and just. And never you violate an agreement, you'll have a problem. And it's just common ethics. I'm saying it's common ethics.
The president...
You understand?
That's my question is this.
Now, I am answering your question because...
responding to all those things in Sagana on Wednesday, was it Wednesday? Yes. The president actually said the person who violated that covenant was William Ruto. Because he was aware of a handshake. He actually okayed the handshake. After that, he went ahead to campaign instead of us working. After that, he came to you and lied to you that he was never aware of the handshake and the handshake has taken over. He accused
Eric,
the deputy.
You know, it's whoever who alleges they must provide proof. It's a maxim of the law. Please.
But you do know, Dennis, that it applies to what you're saying as well. Because if you make a statement and said that what was said of Raila, that he burnt kiosks and that he caused mayhem.
Yeah.
You see...
It's the president who said it in his speech.
I understand the context in which it was being said. And I'm leading to something. I am trying to say this. You are a politician. When politicians make statements, are they made so that some higher value of truth is to be upheld, or is it for convenience? Is it something that suits them at that particular moment in time? Because if we were to go by what people have said over time,
it's one thing today, one thing tomorrow, and
yes.
another thing the day after that.
Yes,
I agree.
because
which one do you run with?
You're talking. I like what you said. It's called Kyoto.
Yes.
The history of this country is littered with pacts such as the ones that you mentioned, which were broken. And at the highest levels, it is said, since I wasn't there, I can only say it is reported that so-and-so was told this. But one which is in the public domain was with the Kibaki and Raila over the prime ministership. It was an agreement and was broken openly. Now, I am bringing this point. Truth speaking, yes. With the politicians, it's a rare commodity. They will say what they want to say. It's expedient. When it's useful, they will turn away from it and say something else.
I agree that a politician may say whatever it is that they say, but as Kenyans, we have Chapter 6 of the Constitution that specifies that if you speak lies, we will call you out. It doesn't stop me from calling you out on the lies that you spoke. And the president was trying to demystify the lies of himself. And he was trying to explain himself why he thinks that he is no longer interested in supporting William Ruto. And it's not that the people of Mount Kenya have an issue with his lack of support, but they have an issue on his integrity. I'm saying this frankly. This is not politics, you know. And you understand, if you look at the progression of Mount Kenya, they have voted as a bloc consistently, protecting the covenants that they have. Always. That's the way they are, you know.
Not always.
No. I mean, we can check from 2002, 2007, 2013, 2017, and now. There has been a peculiar mobilization that is set to protect some nature of covenant. But this is what I'm saying. And before I forget your question, the question that people are asking themselves in the mountain is this. You picked William Ruto for the second term, overwhelmingly, without any issue. At what point did you think he went rogue? Was it 2018 or 2019 or whatever it is that there is? But you have clearly told us that the one who was problematic, and that's the reason why you had to shake their hand, was Raila Amolo Odinga, and you want to endorse. I mean, we have no problem with peace, but you have told us verbatim that he burnt your kiosks and he did and this. So we shook hands. But then that ceasefire, with unknowingly, which we had no issue with it, turned to be a constitutional moment. And you know, you said that the president told His Excellency William Ruto. I want to ask you, Eric, if today your wife that you love comes and says that I'm divorcing you, you're aware, but you don't have to agree. You can oppose it. Making me aware of something you're doing is not an agreement.
It was information.
You understand? You're just merely informing me that is something that you're going to do, but we don't have to work with you in agreement, especially when you're scanty with information.
It's a pity we're running out of time.
We are really.
No, there are certain things that I wanted to say.
I think we'll have you back because we have like 30 seconds to close the hour.
My goodness.
I just wanted to say yes or no. Did the president move the mountain?
No.
Okay. Dennis Ndhumbi is the vice chairperson of Agano Party, and he's a politician, he's a security expert. We've been talking about the implications of the Sagana 3 meeting. He says, not much, zero implication at all.
Zero.
Yeah.
Nada.
But however, extremely heavy implications to the nation.
Extremely heavy?
Implications to the nation.
Okay. we'll have you again to tell us the implications to the nation. Keep it right here for more conversations. In the next hour, we talk about the implications of what is happening in Ukraine to the African continent. A very good morning to you. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Machage is due to arrive in Nairobi at 9:30 a.m. today. Ambassador Machage, who served as Migori Senator in the 11th Parliament, passed away on Saturday, aged 65, while in Abuja. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs said Cabinet Secretary Rachel Omamo will be at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport to receive Machage's body in the company of other senior ministry officials and family members. Machage was appointed to head Kenya's mission in Abuja in January 2018. He subsequently announced his retirement from active politics in July 2018 to focus on his diplomatic assignment. The former senator was first elected into parliament in 2002 representing Kuria constituency and successfully recaptured his seat in 2007 on a Democratic Party ticket. He then ran for Senate in 2013. President Uhuru Kenyatta eulogized Ambassador Machage as a seasoned politician, consummate diplomat and committed public servant who served the country with distinction and utmost dedication. Now, business in the National Assembly was briefly disrupted after MPs engaged in shouting matches and name-calling during the debate on the 2022-2023 budget policy statement. Tempers flared after Majority Leader Amos Kimunya moved an amendment to the Budget and Appropriations Committee report to approve the national government budget ceiling at 2.075 trillion, of which the executive would have its budget capped at 2 trillion shillings. Temporary Speaker Jessica Mbalu of Kibwezi East had a hectic time presiding over proceedings after Kimunya and Kikuyu MP Kimani Ichung'wah were involved in an altercation. The House burst into shouting matches. Pro-handshake MPs demanded that Ichung'wah be ejected from the chamber for using unparliamentary language. Now, the county government of Narok has reiterated plans to complete all development projects before the lapse of its current tenure. Governor Samuel Ole Tunai said he is not ready to hand over unfinished projects to the next regime, as he urged all contractors to strictly adhere to timelines. Speaking at Shankoi Secondary School in Transmara West Sub-County, Tunai explained that his government is committed to delivering quality services to the public until the last day in office. Saying that his government has heavily invested in education, Tunai said infrastructure development and improvement of related support tools was top on the agenda. The country is losing over 27,000 people every year to cancer, according to the latest data from the National Cancer Task Force. Another 42,000 new cases are detected every year, with concern among medics that the cases are on the rise due to poor eating habits, rising number of the aged and changing lifestyle. There is, however, hope for cancer victims, with projections that the cost of treatment could drop by over 60% in the coming days due to opening up of more treatment facilities. This emerged when the task force presented its report to stakeholders after 1 year of taking views across the country. According to the secretary of the task force, Dr. Alfred Karugu, cancer is currently the third killer in the country after infectious and cardiovascular diseases. He identified breast, cervical, prostate, esophagus and colon cancers as the leading in the country, accounting for 45% of the cases. Now, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has instructed officers supervising construction of CBC classrooms to expedite their certification upon completion. Speaking in Nyamira during inspection of the project, the CS directed the officers to work at the same pace by inspecting and certifying the project's completion or risk removal from the process. He warned that the government will not entertain empty classrooms because some officers were sitting on the completion certificates. Magor commended the completion rate achieved countrywide, citing 99% and 72% for Garissa and Nyamira counties respectively. Contractors working on the project will be paid through their Safaricom M-Pesa accounts to avert irregularities and ensure accountability. Now, security officials intercepted 5,703 kilograms of live crabs worth 1.2 million shillings at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. The officers from the Kenya Revenue Authority, customs officers based at JKIA in liaison with officers from the multi-agency team, intercepted the crabs, which were packed in 282 cartons destined for export to China. Crabs are a restricted commodity for export out of the country. Upon questioning, a clearing agent from the Drenal Enterprises Limited informed the officers that the consignment originated from Kilifi County and was booked for export to China by Weda Investment Limited. The clearing agent presented permit documents from the Kenya Fisheries Services that were declared non-authentic by KFS. The consignment is currently being held in custody as KRA awaits further instructions from KFS. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM.
Okay, so we're
Kisumu.
still looking at traffic a few minutes after 8 o'clock and still building up in certain parts of the city. Uhuru Highway then from the Nyeri Stadium roundabout out through towards Westlands, that still continues. Ngong Road still packed and tight. And also coming off Langata Road, quite some traffic there as well. The Thika Superhighway, quite a lot of traffic this morning. Joining with Kiambu Road this morning as well. We're looking at Juja Road with quite a lot of traffic as well. It's that Friday morning thing that we're looking at. And so let's keep seeing how it ebbs and flows. Shouldn't be too terrible, but it's quite heavy in some parts. Let's talk. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to
good morning.
start your
7
day.
minutes after 8 on the 25th of February 2022. It's Friday, wherever you're tuned in. Very good morning, and thank you very much for joining us on Spice FM, on YouTube, on Facebook. There's somebody who says, Lillian, I've seen Lillian is listening in from Mozambique. Good morning, Lillian. Thank you for choosing the Situation Room. We are also live on KTN Home, and CT has the day's proverb.
As we didn't say a word, he thought he could do anything he liked. Because we didn't say a word.
Because we were just quiet, watching him. And you're saying this is something that Mrs. Okoh would say?
Ah, Mrs. Okoh. It's because I've kept quiet all this time. That's all you want to do as you like, Abi.
Because
I've kept quiet.
So you imagine that my silence means
consent for you to misbehave.
Yeah, it's now okay for you to just
behave anyhowly.
Behave anyhowly. The way you feel like. Hey, starting a draft. What does John do when he walks in here? He decides the temperature that we need to be in. This John man.
He switches on
this John guy. Hey, man. John, if you want cold, you
go to Tigoni.
Yeah, go to Tigoni. Or to Timboroa.
Timboroa is a good place.
Yeah. So, as day broke yesterday, news was filtering from Ukraine that Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced that he has ordered his troops into Ukraine. A full-scale military attack that unfolded throughout the day. Various spots hit simultaneously at the same time, opening with air and missile attacks on Ukrainian military facilities before troops and tanks rolled across the borders from the north, the east, and the south The Ukrainian military fought back on multiple fronts, and the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said in a video address early on Friday that 137 people, both servicemen and civilians, have been killed and hundreds more have been wounded. A senior U.S. defense official says Russia may be intent on seizing Kiev, the capital, and other cities, and ultimately installing a more friendly government. That is, what has been said by many who are commentating. We also saw reactions from various world leaders, especially those in the West, NATO, and the U.S. Joe Biden, the president of the U.S., announced several severe economic sanctions against Russia. The leadership of Russia, those in parliament, and those businessmen that strongly support the leadership of Russia. The UK announced similar sanctions. Other European countries announced similar sanctions. NATO has held a meeting, and they're also talking about the kind of sanctions. And they've also threatened that it doesn't matter what you do, Mr. Putin. If you dare cross into any one of a NATO member states, then Article 5 of NATO kicks in. You attack one, it's deemed to be that you've attacked all, and we shall all together respond to this. Putin himself, when he was announcing this, he said, look, we're going into Ukraine. If anybody comes to attack us in Ukraine or in Russia, just know we are prepared to go to any length to defend ourselves. So if you just look at what was happening in the global leaders and what they were saying, it's clear that nobody wants to mobilize troops. In fact, Joe Biden was very clear. We are not sending boots on the ground in this fight unless one of the NATO allies is attacked. And there we have an obligation as a NATO member then to contribute troops. But in terms of going into Ukraine, we are not going to Ukraine. UK Prime Minister Boris also said, we are not going into Ukraine. The NATO Secretary General also said, we are not going into Ukraine, but we shall support Ukrainians in other ways. What do you read of all this?
You've actually taken the question from my mind, or is it my mouth? Because I was going to ask, what do they mean? These are politicians, okay?
Yeah.
When they say we will not send boots, really. Rhetoric around anything that involves the beating of war drums, one can almost say that there's a script that everybody reads from, okay? Depending on which part of the political divide they are on. What Russia has done is not going to go away quietly. Why am I saying it won't go away quietly? By attacking parts of Ukraine and bringing their forces in, essentially they've occupied it. There's no way of looking at it. And even if they moved back, that aggression has already, should we say, blown the whistle on the start of a war. Okay? So this isn't a story of people are on a war footing anymore. No, we have an ongoing war. And if you imagine that the Western Alliance, NATO, and the US are simply genuinely going to sit back and do nothing. No. If I had a map, and I had a map that could show me maybe Google Earth, that could show me how troops are mobilizing, I am certain that fleets are already mobilizing. I am certain that NATO allies, wherever they are, their troops are on the ready. They may not have gone anywhere, but they are on the ready.
Yep.
Remember, when you say boots on the ground, you have American troops in many of these countries. You don't need to send new ones. They already exist. So when they say we're not sending boots, do they mean new boots? What are they saying?
They're saying they're not. Those boots will stay where they are. If they're in their bases in Poland, they will stay in Poland.
There.
They will not cross over into Ukraine.
Precisely.
At least not by day.
No. That is the key thing.
In any way that they can be seen.
A lot of warfare that is fought in this day and age isn't about moving troops and bombing and No. It's sophisticated technology. Meaning you can even tell where, who is, what they're going to do. What am I saying? I'm saying this advancement into Ukraine, they knew about it. It's not that they didn't know. The signs were already there. Modern warfare, they argue, is not even won in the field. It's won in the strategy and the techniques and how it is you prepare for it and how well you can read the actions, or should you say predetermine the actions of your enemy?
Indeed. I think with what you're seeing now, and then looking at what Vladimir Putin now said later on in the day, insisting that he wanted to do as much as he could to keep civilians safe, then perhaps could point to the fact that, or point to the belief that this is not more than pushing the point of his agenda from the very beginning, which was that you cannot come against us and expect us to be quiet, whether it is in thought or deed or action. It is a point that is trying to be proven here. And then you can see the furtherance of that point by saying, look, we want to do everything we can to keep people within these borders safe. So in as much as the action you see it on the ground here in Ukraine, there's something beyond that is being said here by this attack that has been made by Russia.
What is Putin telling us? That some of the missiles that they have are children-friendly, that they only attack adults and that children are spared. The moment you do what he's doing, people are going to die, and there's no deciding who it is who's going to die. It's just that they're people. They may be very young people, whom we call children. They may be adults. They may be older people. If the idea was to keep people safe, you would
not have done that.
Yes,
in the
exactly.
First place.
That guarantee they would remain safe.
It is a backtrack on the action to come out and say, well, we're trying to keep people safe as much as possible. But you actually are not doing that, because by the time that you have people running out of cities at alarming speed, you have even soldiers making public their thoughts, then what you do is that you have not kept them safe.
I think he has arrived. You know, the truth of the matter is this, Ndu. A defensive war is where you try to keep people safe. You have been fought and you are returning the fight. And in so returning the fight, you could say you're trying to keep people safe, okay? But where it is you who has been attacked and your attacker is talking about keeping people safe, tell me, how does that work? Ndu.
It's not really keeping people safe. It isn't. If anything...
You don't attack unless... You know, the only time people attack to keep people safe, let's say, for instance, people have been kidnapped, all right? Or you're trying to release hostages. That's when you talk about keeping people safe. But a war that you've started by attacking someone, and then you have this discussion about keeping the people you're attacking safe.
There are very many angles, though, to that. That whole issue of NATO and NATO advancing closer and closer towards Russia. And even many times when Putin has spoken and said, you know what, we're not talking about NATO being far away. We're talking about NATO just being here. They are next door. When NATO is next door, and NATO was formed, and one of the things that NATO has been doing even during the Cold War and all is positioning itself against us. What do we read from that?
They are reading it as aggression.
They read it as aggression. And in fact, he even calls it directly. He says, this is aggression. NATO, you need to stop your advancement towards coming closer. Ukraine, even in the old USSR, was a very critical part of the USSR. It's one of the bigger countries. Ukraine, even after it got independence, is an economic powerhouse in the region. Now, that tussle between Russia and Europe and Ukraine has been there over very many years. The whole conversation and discussion of, now what do we do? Do we say that we have access to Ukraine because Ukraine has some parts that are ethnically Russian, there are parts that are majority Russian, there are parts that are leaning towards the West and EU and joining the EU and having conversations around, being members of the EU. All those, if we put into context, then we have a whole new ballgame. Bottom line is, as we speak today, Russian troops in Ukraine. As we speak today, Western countries, sanctions against Russia. As we speak today, the ordinary Eric Latiff and his wife and his daughter are crossing from Ukraine, trying to find a way into a neighboring country because they don't know.
And international bodies are telling us that the humanitarian crisis is of enormous proportions.
Yes.
Yes. Something that borders on catastrophic. So,
there's a lot that's happening in this area, and there's a lot that's going to happen in coming days. And what is the implication of that, especially to African countries? So there's a story actually today, a very interesting story that talks about just looking at how much we import from these two countries as Kenya, Russia and Ukraine. The country imports billions of shillings worth of machines used by manufacturers, construction materials, raw materials for making packaging bags used by retailers. Of the 40.6 billion shillings products Kenya imported from Russia in 2020, based on data submitted to UN Comtrade, it's a repository of official international trade statistics, wheat constituted 16.5 billion shillings, maize 989 million shillings, fertilizer 4.9 billion shillings. Of the 8 billion shillings commodities Kenya imported from Ukraine in the same year 2020, according to the same database, soybeans constituted 1.8 billion shillings, wheat and maize 1 billion shillings, vegetables 655 million, sunflower seed and cotton seed oil 434 million. Kenya also imported semi-finished iron and steel products worth 11.9 billion shillings, bars and rods worth 1.5 billion shillings, aluminium valued at 853 million shillings. It imported iron and steel from Ukraine worth 4.45 billion shillings. These products are essential in the production and construction industries. The retail sector imports more than 1 billion shillings worth of craft paper and paperboard from Russia, which are used in making shopping bags, among other items. Yesterday, Ukraine's ambassador to Kenya, Andriy Praventki, warned that should the conflict between his country and Russia escalate, Kenya would feel the impact. He said students who want to study in Ukraine would lose opportunities, while those already there could be forced to leave. Direct implications. Everybody has talked about the implication globally to energy, right? Energy prices could soar. We've already seen oil prices globally going up. EPRA, we know, says Kenya, our reserve only runs out for 10 days. So we are likely to feel an impact immediately in the global rising of fuel prices. Let's bring in somebody to help us analyze this conversation. Ibrahim Kane is the African liaison for the Open Society Institute in West Africa and the African Union, talking about the African perspective on this particular conflict. Ibrahima, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Welcome to SpiceFM. We call that the hot seat. But because you're our friend and you're coming to help us understand these things, it's not going to be so hot for you.
No problem. I'm ready for that.
Tell us about the Open Society Institute, especially the work that you do in West Africa, and whether the Open Society Institute has any, globally, has done any work in Ukraine or in this particular...
Well, Open Society Foundation is a foundation created by George Soros. We are a global foundation. We have offices in Africa in 3 regions, West, Southern, and Eastern Africa. Our regional office is based here in Nairobi. And we also have offices in Europe, in eastern part of Europe, in Latin America, in Asia. Our biggest objective is to open societies, to really make sure that democracy prevails in all the region of the world. And of course, what is happening in Ukraine now is of concern because it's not only about the powerful countries trying to do what they want in the world, where normally we should have international law, organizing the relationship between states, not the powerful being the right people. And also there are a number of issues that we really dealing with: democracy, good governance, respect for human rights, economic justice. So we are dealing with a big number of issues in the world, in Africa and elsewhere. And we're trying also to look at the comparative perspective, the South's relationship with the North, and how we can make sure that in those relationships, each part takes also, has a benefit of those relationships. So those are the main drivers of our work.
Specific to Ukraine, has the Open Society Foundation, George Soros, been involved in that push, like you say, it's democratization? For example, the 2014 protests in Kiev that led to the exit and the fleeing of a president and then the new administration. Have open society, been participating in this?
Well, our work, particularly in Europe, is really the eastern part of Europe, the Europe that was occupied, a few years ago by the Soviet Union. Work is really to help those countries to come back to a kind of normality, respect for human rights, democracy, rule of law. So in that regard, I think there is also an important aspect to highlight here is the fact that George Soros is George Soros, but the foundation that we have is our foundation run by people who are, working in a particular context, using particular tools to really make sure that democracy as we see it, we live it and we feel it. And that's why our intervention, either in Africa or in Europe, are the same. We always try to make sure that the power of people is felt and, respected by those who believe that they can still continue to run the world in their way.
With what we've seen yesterday, even, look, if we're to be honest, from what we've seen from 2014 until the culmination then of this final, move that led to this action coming from the Kremlin, in the words of Putin, and then we saw after that this attack. What does it mean then? We've seen already people fleeing. What does it mean for the people? How do we see it for the people who are sitting in Ukraine or trying to leave Ukraine at this moment? And then for those of us who are watching from the periphery around the world, who are looking at this and saying, okay, for every action, there is a reaction. What happens here on the continent, if we're looking at it from an African perspective, as we look at the people in Ukraine who are clearly taking the short end of the stick from this action?
Well, there are different aspects to highlight when it comes to Africa. African countries, since the creation of the OAU, have always organized their relationship based on a number of principles. Respect of state sovereignty, respect of the integrity of the territory of the state, and also relationship based on, good faith and organizing the relationship in the way that when there are problems, they are sorted out in a very democratic but also peaceful manner. What we are seeing in Ukraine is the contrary of all of that. So that's why you've seen many African countries condemning strongly, and I think what Kenya representative at the UN did was to strongly condemn what was happening, because it just shows that powerful countries still undermine international law. That's one aspect. The second aspect is that what we have seen in that region is a practice that also exists in our continent. I don't even need to go very far. Kenya. You remember Kenya put a lot of forces at the border with Somalia in the past, threatening Somalia if the government behave in a certain way, they will invade the faith. It's the same practice, because look at Egypt, for instance, in Libya. Libya is a completely disorganized state. Egypt continuing to play an important role and even threatening to invade the country if a certain group is left to take the power. So those practices also exist on the continent. The third element, and I think you alluded to it when you were explaining the impact of this crisis on our continent. Russia is an important actor on our continent. Maybe in the eastern part you don't feel it, but in the western part of the continent, in the southern part, Russia contributed, supported, liberation movement on the continent. In Angola, in Southern Africa, in West Africa, many Africans were trained in Russia. So Russia still have, really strong relationship with the continent. And above all, you see just in recent years Russia organizing, like many other countries, a Russia-Africa meeting.
Yep.
Russia now involved in politics in Central African Republic, recently in Mali. Those are also the situation that African states have to look, to take care of while, reacting
to this. Let's actually get into greater detail on that, on the implications of what's happening in Russia, on the implications of the global sanctions being imposed on Russia, those implications on Africa, African countries, like you're saying. Very many of them are friendly to Russia. Very many of them have close economic and social ties and political ties as well to Russia. 8:30, we're live on KTN Home on SpiceFM, and we're also live streaming the show on YouTube and Facebook. Ibrahim Akane is the African liaison at the Open Society Institute for West Africa and also at the African Union. We are talking about the ongoing conflict in Ukraine and how it impacts us. We'll be back shortly after we take a look at the weather and traffic.
This nation has never healed genuinely from the 2000-2008 violence. We've never had a healing process. We've swept it under the rug.
Let me tell you, the handshake was the most disastrous political event in the history of country after the coup attempt of 1982.
There is no Kikuyu pothole, Luo lack of water, Okamba,
lack of traffic.
Yeah. There is no Luya lack of drugs in the hospitals. Ojaluo one. All our issues are the same issues.
If you are in a room and just about everybody in that room has a court case or another, what impression does that give you?
What are you saying? Why haven't you done it in the last 20 years? But they're telling us, like August, some miracle is going to happen. My friend, I want to tell Kenyans, you'll be in for a rude shock.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
17 degrees, mostly cloudy in Nairobi. A chance of rain later. Highs of 24 and lows of 15. It's partly sunny at 17 in Nakuru. Highs of 26 and lows of 13. 12 will be the low in Nyeri, where it's sunny at 14. Highs of 24. Mostly cloudy at 16 in Eldoret. Highs of 24 and lows of 12. We're looking at sunny conditions at 28 in Mombasa. 32 will be the high and lows of 26. While it's also sunny in Malindi. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 25. Mostly sunny in Kisumu at 21. Highs of 28 and lows of 18, and we're looking at sunny conditions in Kakamega at 21, 28, 29 will be the high and lows of 15. Kampala sunny at 22, highs of 26 and lows of 19, while Dar es Salaam mostly cloudy at 26, highs of 31 and lows of 25. Looking at mostly clear conditions in Lagos at 27, highs of 34 and lows of 26, while Johannesburg is sunny at 18, highs of 26 and lows of 14, and it's sunny in Kinshasa at 24, highs of 33 and lows of 23. All right, building up and a chance of a drizzle here and there, so that's going to compound things just a little bit. Some traffic then on Ngong Road, which will continue as you're getting into that community area. And Jogo Road also quite tight as well. Coming off of the Thika Superhighway, still continues with quite a lot of traffic this morning, but seems to be easing off just a little bit coming out of Westlands as well. Not too crazy a day, but from the drip drop of rain that we're seeing in some parts already, likely to get stickier. Have you reached where you're going? If not, take that into consideration and then use your bypasses. Okay? All right. Let's talk. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It is 27 minutes to 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's a Situation Room. With you in the room is Eric Latiff, Ndu Okoh, CT Muga. And our guest this hour is Ibrahim Akane. He is the African liaison for the Open Society Institute in West Africa of the African Union. the impact of what's happening in Ukraine to African countries. Well, we've seen reaction from all the other parts of the world. We've seen reaction from the EU, from NATO countries, from the G7 countries, from the US, the UK Prime Minister addressing Parliament and announcing sanctions. Have we seen any reaction from the African Union, Ibrahima?
Oh, yes, yes. Yesterday, the chairperson of the AU, the Senegalese President Macky Sall, and the chairperson of the AU Commission, Moussa Faki, released a joint communique where they reiterated the fact that international relationship should be pacific, international relationship should be based on the respect of international law, and they are asking the two countries to really try to find, pacific way of resolving the current situation. Many other African countries also have reacted. I've talked about the reaction of Kenya, but South Africa has reacted, and many other countries have reacted. This situation is a very interesting one. Interesting one because this may be an opportunity for African countries to also open up a conversation on how international relationships should be. It's so discriminatory. The powerful are those who are right. And African countries, despite the fact that Africa is the largest regional group in the world, 55 countries, Africa doesn't have any voice at the, UN.
Yeah.
It's the 5 countries that's still controlling, and we need to democratize. And I think this crisis open up that opportunity for African countries to also highlight the fact that the way relationships are functioning, things should change. And I think if we are really keen to look at what is happening, and we can play an important role by raising those concerns, by raising the concern about the non-respect by powerful country of, simple element of international law.
Do I hear you to be saying that our voices are not taken seriously, and that we have an opportunity to actually let our voices be taken seriously?
Yes, not only that, but the fact that this crisis is so important for the whole world that maybe it could be an opportunity to open up conversation on how the international system should work in the future. And I think if we are able to do that, it will give us also an opportunity to really highlight those issues that I mentioned.
I asked this. I'm looking at the AU, and I'm looking at the role that African leaders play when we have conflicts in our own continent. You, as somebody who works with the Open Society, how successful has the AU been, and how successful have African leaders been in quelling strife within our own boundaries of this continent?
Well, there is a lot of criticism on the AU, and I take those criticisms. But don't forget that the AU is a very young organization. OAU started in 1963 up to 2003, and the AU is since 2003 is trying to reorganize the way African countries relate to each other. So it's not a long story, and that can also explain why we are here. Second point, leadership. Leadership at the continental level. When we talk about international organization, usually we say international organizations are not like satellites. Satellite, when you put them somewhere, they stay there until something happens. International organization life is also related to the leadership that is there. When you look at AU, the way AU was performing during Alpha Conare period is different from the where the AU was operating during Faki or during Mrs. Zuma's period. That leadership is also very important in the conduct of African affairs. The third point that I would like to highlight is also the leadership of other states. We have 5 big states. We used to have 5 big states, namely Nigeria, South Africa, Algeria, Egypt, and Libya, because they were contributing, for 75% to the budget of the AU. Some of them, Libya is no longer a state.
Yep.
And some of the big states were, going through troubles. Algeria, South Africa. That also explains why we are here today. But I believe that, despite all those problems, the fact that Africa has now a clear idea, a clear vision of where it wants to go, the Agenda 2063, with 7 aspirations. If those aspirations are implemented, things will change on the continent. The AU stuff should not be just an AU issue. It should be an African issue. All of you in this room should also play a role, particularly the media, because we need to believe in ourselves. Don't forget that we were colonized for 200th century.
Yeah.
And colonization itself changed a lot in the way that you behave. We need to decolonize our, look at our school.
Yeah.
Look at the way we're still running into system that was set up by former colonial masters. It's changing in few countries. If I look at your education system at the moment, it's one of the best on the continent. I look at this space, I can only see African operating in this space, but go to many other African countries. The former colonial are still controlling the issue. You remember the big problem between Mali and France was related to the fact that France wanted to always control the thing.
Right.
So let's believe in ourselves. Let's also try to make sure that the African Union is the only institution that we have. We make it work.
If we were to cast our eyes on a futuristic situation, Ibrahima, and say that if we're looking at the way in which it ought to be able, because I think from the first reactions that we saw, although China being extremely quiet here, the what you would call the big guns making the United States saying what it has been saying over time, France saying what it has been saying, the United Kingdom, back and forth, Great Britain saying what they have been saying. Are you saying that if the African Union and African countries, having had all their ducks in a row futuristically, then also would be at this table being able to say things, condemn situations, make an opinion, and then be heard or regarded?
Yes. You talked about the US, you talked about France. These countries, in this particular situation, should not be teaching us anything. The US has invaded Iraq 2 times.
Yep.
In clear violation of international law. When they went to the UN to try to get a UN resolution, they failed.
Yep.
And despite that failure, they decided to invade Iraq because they were pursuing their own interests. I can give you many examples of France, pursuing its own interests in Africa or in many other reasons. These are not states that could teach us how to behave. But for the African continent, I believe that we have our ideas, we have our vision on how international relationships should be. And it's based on that vision, I think. African countries, for the last 20 years, were always criticizing the way international relationships were organized. And they were claiming that they need to have a permanent seat at the UN level to really be part of the conversation. 55 countries, and don't forget that we have countries like South Africa, Egypt, Algeria. They are not
big
small
economies.
countries. Even Kenya, when you look at it somehow, it's a country that can also play an important role in international law. So our claim for more democratic space in international relationship, I think, is valid.
Do you think, Ibrahima, that this crisis then is an open door for Africa? Is this an opportunity for Africa to exert itself?
Exactly. That's what I was saying.
How do we do that?
Well, it's for African countries, African leaders, particularly the AU, to take this opportunity. There will be conversation at the UN level, UN security. Don't forget that we have 3 representatives at the UN Security Council at the moment. They are the UN General Assembly will be meeting to discuss some of these issues. This is a momentum to really open up the conversation on other aspects of international relationship. Because up to now, international relationship is based on the fact that those who are powerful are those who are right. You know, when it comes to respect for international law, it's just the small countries, the weak countries that really pursue the respect for international law.
And
so,
here's an opportunity where those powerful, those right, are now fighting amongst themselves.
Yes.
And one big right versus other big rights, and the big rights who are feeling that they are on the receiving end are not even able to retaliate properly and say, we are going to come in and protect the people of Ukraine like they did with the people of Kuwait. So how can Africa then exert itself? And like you say, if this is an opportunity for Africa to come out and be the one region that sorted out the issue, the global crisis in Ukraine, how can we go about it?
Well, we can go about it in many manners. First, to really come up as 55 countries with some very clear ideas on where we want to, how we want to see international relationship. 2, this also offers an opportunity to really look at again our relationship with even our former master. You know, the Mali crisis, people are just looking at it as one of the crises in Africa. But for the first time, an African country has decided to expel the ambassador of a former colonial power. Mali is also an example of where the former colonial master came to try to impose its rule, you know, claiming that they are helping the country. And now the Mali government has decided to ask the French military to leave the country. You know, those 2 examples show that we are also able to change the narrative. We are also able to change, and you will see the impact of those 2 measures taken by the military in Mali, because it gives pride to many Africans to that, you know, in fact, we used to look at that powerful, but they are not so powerful. So the Mali experience, you know, the fact that now, during our conversation with the EU recently, last week, we also really forced the EU to go in a certain way. In the past, they used to tell us what to do. They even used to prepare the communique before the meeting. But this time, 1 week before the beginning of the meeting, we didn't have an agenda.
Which meeting is this?
The AU-EU meeting in Brussels. We didn't have. So things are changing on the continent. So that's why I say this is the momentum to really use those examples to really start changing our relationship with the West. But we should not use this momentum to think that we will replace one powerful country with another one. For example, in Mali, to replace France by Russia. No. The idea is to use that momentum to change, to look at again our relationship with external world. You know, Africa is the only region in the world where countries like Turkey, countries like South Korea can really ask all of us to go and meet with them. You know, China, Russia,
Japan.
the US, Japan, you know, I think this is the momentum to change that rationale. And if we change that way of behaving, it will have an impact on the way Africa is perceived at the international level.
Do you think that in addition to this momentum, if we're talking of it, should also be an opportunity for the leadership on this continent to actually understand and put into practice strong democratic practices within their own boundaries?
It's all related. You know, it's all related because personally I believe that it's only by democratizing our society, by making sure that the will of people is respected, rather than who is our connection at the international level, that we can make the change. And it has started. We just need to strengthen, to use those first signs that we have in many places. How do you think that the Mali government decided to act in certain way with France? It's because they get the support of the people. So if you get the support of the people, you can do a lot.
You see, the unfortunate thing is that our lived experience is that on this continent, the people give support to the leadership. And what has been consistent to the point of it being endemic is the leadership then lets down the people consistently. They get into power, there are signs that they're going to bring about change, there's talk about change that they're going to bring, and then when they've entrenched themselves, within a short time, the population realizes that we're not even back where we started. We're probably even worse off than we were before.
Yes, but at the same time, this is I can say this period is also the period where our people are more educated. Our people know better what is happening in the world. It was not like that 10 or 15 years ago. And in many countries, let me come back to the Kenyan situation. Look at the way today Kenyan are seeing the politician and the politics in Kenya. When you see for ID issues, people are now going to court and are successful in dealing with those issues. It shows you that something is changing in our continent, that people are more educated, they know better the issues than the politician, and that they can also derail some of the projects that the politician are thinking. Kenya, Mali, South Africa, if you put all these things together, you realize that this is a continent that can really make a lot of changes. But as long as we respect democratic principles, as long as we...
Ibrahima, do you think then it calls for a different kind of democracy? Because when we talk about democratization of countries, then it seems as though we are trying to fit into an already prescribed template from the West. No. Do you think we need our own? We need to define our own kind of democracy. Because even as we look at it now, look at Ukraine, look at Russia. The people within the country probably don't have the same ethos as the leaders.
Yes. But, Madam...
But we don't hear it.
Yes, Madam, we all come in humanity through a particular culture, isn't it? So the way, if you look at democracy today in the world, the way it operates in the US is different from the way it operates in the UK, is different from the way it operates in Japan, is different from the way it operates in France. So in Africa, it's also really clear that the way it operates in a country like Mali will be different from the way it operates in Kenya.
Yep.
And our trajectory are not the same, and also our culture are not the same. So we need to base what we are doing about democratizing our society through what are our strengths. And I also believe that democracy, it's a number of principles. Equality, non-discrimination, full participation of people, respect of a number of norms, rule of law. So if those are implemented in countries, so we can get there. We can get there. Maybe the rhythm will not be the same from one country to another one, given the peculiarity of the country.
And that's okay.
But yes, we will get there.
Sorry.
Go ahead, please.
When you say we have a far more educated population in the country, it is true. But I don't know what it is. I don't know which country it is that you come from. Which country do you come from?
I come from Senegal.
Okay, from Senegal. Now, Senegal is a beautiful country, a rich history. We in Kenya also say we have a rich history, and we have, for instance, one of the most educated parliaments we've ever had in our history. They have performed dismally. If you look at issues that pertain to the interest of the common man, we have many laws that have been passed that you could consider good. Some of them are clearly partisan. But that conversation has been, our parliament has been held captive by the executive. Now, this is an independent body that is supposed to oversight the executive. They are educated. The number of lawyers in that parliament, for every stone you throw, you'll probably hit 3 or 4 lawyers. What I'm saying is, this cultural change, this societal change that we talk about in this continent, I'm not saying it cannot happen. I'm simply saying that education alone doesn't do it. And where I agree with you is this. It's the people, beyond the leadership that they've elected, who need to understand that they have a far bigger role of oversighting even the people they have elected together with the executive that they have elected. Because looking at change to come from the elected body that we have, nah, in this country, no, I fear that is not where change is going to come from.
Well, don't say that. Don't say that. You know,
don't give up, City.
Yeah. No, don't give up. You know, I come from a country where elections started in the 19th century. In 1848, that's where, in the 4 cities that were occupied by French at that time on the territory of Senegal, we started election.
Yes.
Almost 200 years. But I can't say that the way our democratic system is operating is far better than the Kenyan one. You know, but what I can say is more and more people are getting power and people are imposing their voice, they desire to the politician. It takes time. You know, when you look at the Western democracy, the American democracy started in the 17th century.
Yes, it did.
So they have that experience, the long experience that we don't have. I'm not saying that for us we have to wait 200 years, but we have educated population. We have people like you, the media, all the different sectors of our society that also have an important role to play. If they understand that role, I think we can really move the boundaries very quickly. And that's why, for example, in Senegal, when we had a leader called Abdoulaye Wade, who fought for 25 years and later on became president. And when he tried to organize, and he was very, very popular, powerful, but when he tried to have a third term, it's the population itself that went to and decided, that it won't happen. So that tells you about, if our population is well educated, know what they want, we will get there. We will get there, and I think all the different sections of our society have a role to play. Devolution here, you can say, it has not been successful, but it has changed a lot of things in this country. And that is how we should be, and maybe in the next 10 years, we will see it differently.
So it's many steps.
Many steps.
Many steps, but we are heading in the right direction.
Heading in the right direction, but all the different actors should play a role. Particularly, I'm here with the media. The media should play an important role in that regard. And I think it's important.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. As we conclude, what one thing would you like to see coming out of the AU today with regards to the ongoing crisis in Ukraine that would then give you that full confidence that, yes, we are going to take advantage of this particular opportunity?
Well, I think to walk the talk. When I read the AU communique, it's really nice. But I don't think that AU member states are behaving like that, many of them. So for me, it's for the AU as a regional organization to really make sure that African states respect, the sovereignty of other states, and also African states do things in the way that really help to ensure that the AU vision is implemented.
Realized. Ibrahim Akane has been our guest this hour. He is the Africa liaison for the AU from the Open Society Institute for West Africa. Thank you very much for joining us today. We thank you very much for coming and shedding the light on what you see as the opportunities for Africa, what you see as a journey that Africa can take in occupying its rightful space in global politics.
Thank you for inviting a Senegalese to the conversation. Thank you.
Keep it right here for more conversations. We want to thank our audience on KTN Home who have been with us since the top of the hour. The conversations continue as well on SpiceFM and on YouTube and Facebook. Coming up in the next hour, we have a conversation with Dr. Mercy Korir. What is the status of the rollout of the universal health coverage? Good morning.
Latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire Dennis Aseto. Church leaders have urged politicians to respect the church and given room to grow and regulate itself as they campaign. Church and Clergy Association of Kenya Chairman Bishop Hudson Deda says the recent blanket condemnation of the church by President Uhuru Kenyatta during the Sagana 3 meeting is regrettable. He says while they admit that there could be a few bad elements amongst them, the truth is that the Kenyan church and the clergy have complemented immensely government efforts in fostering peace, unity and cohesion. He added that agencies such as EACC should without fail expose, shame and apprehend corrupt persons, whether such persons are in politics or in the church. He called on the government to instead focus on areas of synergy with the church rather than antagonize the work of the man of cloth. During the Sagana 3 meeting, President Uhuru Kenyatta fired a warning shot at religious leaders and a section of leaders who were accused of being beneficiaries of corrupt money. The head of state savagely attacked a section of politicians for spreading lies and using corrupt money to woo churches to support their bid. Now, crop scientists have developed a new hybrid rice variety which is now ready for commercialization in the country. The variety, ideal for small-scale farmer holders, has since gone through field trials and the technology developer is ready to engage in mass seed production. The seed, however, is not recyclable, according to the Chief Executive Officer of the Hybrid East Africa Limited, John Ham. The CEO, who has been in the seed breeding business for 16 years in the country, said although the seed was costly to the ordinary Kenyan farmer, all efforts should be made to discard recycling for the purpose of planting another crop. And road contractors in Kakamega County who win government contracts but fail to deliver will be blacklisted. The County Commissioner John Ondego warned that such contractors will no longer be tolerated, saying those who already won the tenders must ensure they complete the projects as per the contract terms. Speaking after leading members of the County Development Implementation and Coordination Committee for a 2-day visit to assess the progress of the ongoing projects, the County Commissioner said the national government has since 2013 spent 10.2 billion shillings under the Kenya Rural Roads Authority for roads upgrade to bitumen standards in Kakamega County. He said this has seen 240 kilometers of the county's rural roads awarded to various contractors, with a total of 135 kilometers fully completed. Now, leaders in the education sector in West Pokot County held a meeting to discuss preparations for the Form 4 National Examinations KCSE. The one-day conference that was held at Chepkorniswo High School, led by Deputy Commissioner for Kipkomo area, Teresia Mugure, with the main issue being to end cheating cases in the exams. The Commissioner said surprise visits during the exams were not appropriate, as head teachers had to be careful and beware of exam theft. During, Director of Education in the area, Evans Onyancha, said their officers are ready to supervise the exams.
I'm convinced that the measures that we have put in place are not expecting any cheating at all. Through the assistance of our DCC, we have actually acquired some strong vehicles which are going to cater for where the terrain is hostile, especially on the Barua Benon area. And our vehicles within the sub-county, we have distributed them.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky vowed to stay in Kiev as his troops battle Russian invaders who are advancing towards the capital in the biggest attack on a European state since World War II. Russia launched its invasion by land, air and sea Following a declaration of war by President Vladimir Putin, an estimated 100,000 people fled as explosions and gunfire rocked major cities. Dozens have been reported killed. US and Ukrainian officials say Russia aims to capture Kyiv and topple the government. Russia Thursday seized the Chernobyl former nuclear power plant north of Kyiv, along the shortest route to the capital from Belarus, where Moscow had staged troops. This as Britain has imposed a biting package of sanctions on Russia that Prime Minister Boris Johnson said will degrade its economy for years to come, as it slammed President Vladimir Putin in unusually personal terms. After Putin ordered his forces to invade Ukraine, Johnson called him a dictator who will never be able to cleanse the blood of Ukraine from his hands. He said Downing Street will fly Ukraine's flag and be lit up in the national colors of yellow and blue. Protesters waving Ukrainian flags and brandishing placards of support gathered outside Downing Street. This is News. I am Dennis Asseto. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, still in traffic hour this morning and looking tight in some parts. There's a drizzle on certain parts of Thika Road today. We're seeing that Raila Odinga taking some traffic this morning. Gong Road also looks pretty messy. We're also looking at Uhuru Highway going all the way through to Westlands, but it's actually not that bad. Not really. Okay, so what else are we seeing? The Thika Superhighway gotten a lot better now. And just as you approach the Pangani underpass where you see some traffic, it's eased off on what is the road? This road called Kiambu Road. That's what I was looking for. All right, so it's looking better, folks. A few minutes after 9 o'clock. Let's take a look at about 9:30. It should have eased off completely. And then let's talk. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room. The only way.
How many minutes now? 7 minutes. After what time?
9 o'clock.
Bas.
You continue.
And what's the date?
25th
of
February.
How many more days to Uhuru's drive?
5. Okay. From Machakos Junction to
Mahiu Junction.
On the completed. Come on now.
Everything I have seen about our president has led me to the conclusion that he's not suicidal.
No?
Unless he's changed drastically and has become thus. From where again?
Machakos Junction. Chumvi.
Yes.
To Rironi.
In Mahiu, at the junction, Mahiu.
June is when this thing will be finished.
Okay.
June.
And
that's being polite.
I'm telling you that June this one can be finished because the person constructing it is using his own money and he wants to get paid for it.
Yes.
Chap. Machakos Junction to Kitangela Junction. Uhuru opened that thing in 2017 before the elections.
And we are nowhere.
And it has remained open.
Same. Westlands to Mahiu Junction.
Bas.
Before the elections. It's still the same. But me, I believe. When the president tells me something, me, I believe. President came to us in October and said, in December, power bills are going to come down by 33%. I believed him.
And then?
He came back in the middle of December and said, we are on course. In fact, end of December, power bills will come down by 15%. I believed the man.
It happened in January, but okay.
The point is, me, I believe the guy.
And then in March, another 18% is going to happen. This
believe.
March has many things, though. It's like Christmas in the middle of the year.
Me, I believe. The president rolled out the nationwide universal health coverage. And he said, my friend,
by July,
this thing of you people are going and it's you coughing so much money, hospitals, India,
finish.
Done. Dusted.
You
I
believe
believe him. But tell us the proverb first.
As we didn't say a word, he thought he could do anything he liked. That's the proverb. From Algeria. I've been saying it since 6 o'clock in the morning. It is now a few minutes past 9. I'm still saying the same proverb, and I have not changed a single word.
Repeat it again.
Right? Mercy wants me to repeat it. As we didn't say a word, he thought he could do anything he liked. It's a proverb.
It's not you.
No, and it's not. I'm not
It
referring.
has no relation to anything.
No,
we're
no,
talking
no.
about.
It's just the time when I say the proverb, and this is the proverb of the day.
Mercy Career, Dr. Mercy Career is the editor for Health and Science at the Standard Group PLC. She's in the studio. Happy Healthy Friday, Mercy.
Healthy Friday, indeed. Good morning. Good morning,
Good to
everyone.
have you in the show.
Good to see you too.
You believe that you're like me, Mercy. You know, you and I are kindred.
Bees of a pod.
We believe when our leaders tell us.
Mhm.
So you were there in Shanzu. You witnessed firsthand. The president was speaking like he was speaking to you, and said,
It was a very good speech.
universal health
Said
coverage,
mercy.
nationwide rollout, things by June, blah, 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 blah. We sort out things, we'll be good to go. Are we on course? Because that's the other word that's a very favorite of this country's leadership.
I think there's a big difference between saying and doing. The doing part is the one that is taxing, is the one that needs work. And that's the one that now the implementers need a lot of more oil in their joints to move. But so if they're not motivated or they're all of these bottlenecks, bureaucratic, everything, then you find that when you say we are on course for June, you find that in June, you're not even a quarter way done with what you're supposed to do. And so, well, that's the difference between saying, having a beautiful speech,
And doing.
And for
Walking
health,
the talk.
Yeah, exactly. And for health, there's a lot more work that needs to be done to actualize some of these things. Because remember, health is not like the road you're talking about from Chumvi to Athi River to Kitengela interchange that has taken all of these many years. You can see that it is either moving or not. But you see, health is intangible. It's at the point where you need health services that you'll realize either something is not working or working. It's at that point when you need something that it comes to light. And it's not everyone who needs to go to a hospital, for example. It's not everyone who is in need of vaccination at the same time. So people experience it at different times, and different places do things differently. So that's where the gap is. Yeah.
One of the key cogs of implementation of UHC is the reforms that have been done to NHIF. Now, NHIF has a new law. To operationalize that law, we need to have regulations enacted. NHIF, the Ministry of Health, has drafted regulations, and they are now being subjected to public participation. What kind of reaction are those regulations getting?
Of course, and you've had these conversations here, there was, do we call it a public outcry against those regulations? But for me, I think if... What I read from the reactions of people is that if Kenya had a track record of utilizing our funds the way they're supposed to, people wouldn't mind paying. For example, people pay thousands of shillings in private insurance and they don't complain because, okay, assuming all were working the same, but chances are when you've paid that...
Assuming the insurance company doesn't fold.
Yes. Or they don't deny your claim at the point of, claiming. So assuming people pay thousands of shillings, knowing that if I fall sick or if I need this, then the other person on the other end whose contract is to cover that financial ask will do it. Then people don't complain, people pay. But in this case, knowing the 50 plus years history of NHIF, knowing our government and all the good declarations they make, and what you find at the point of getting services, then people have a right to question. If I'm paying X percent of my gross income, what does it guarantee me?
Yeah.
Do I go to the hospital and then at the same time I have to walk across the street to get an X-ray done? I have to go across the street to buy medicine? Then in that case, it does not make sense. So we have to see. There has to be proven records by government, in my opinion, that the little they have, they've put into good use so that we can trust them with some more. So as a matter of principle, for me, it's let's see what you do with what you have first. With implementing what you've said you'll implement,
But
then maybe we can trust you with some more.
So what should happen with these regulations? Should people say, all right, let's give you the benefit of the doubt this last time, and say okay to the regulations so we can start seeing if you indeed have transformed?
Would you do that, Eric?
Or should we say no? NHIF, wacha ibaki vile ilikuwa, I don't care. Because if you do that, then we are not moving towards the realization of UHC.
It's a phased approach in the first place. I mean, you will not achieve UHC in the next 6 months. Even if we were to pay the government all the money they're asking for, they'll not get, or they'll not guarantee us what they're saying they'll do in 6 months' time, or even by the end of the year. So it should be phased. So we can say for this year, with what you have been getting, do something about it. In any case, there is an amount which will be allocated from Treasury to cover the people who are not able to pay anything. At all. I think it's about 3 billion shillings that will pay for those guys. So starting with 1 billion shillings. So that's already 1 billion in the pot. Remember, they have the other enhanced schemes. So it means there are people who are paying extra. That's civil servants and any other organization that wants some extra coverage from NHIF. Then you have many more people enrolling from the informal employment, from formal employment, all of this. So there's something to start with. So can we start with that? Or alternatively, allocate some funds from Treasury. Then we see for this year. If they can prove they can work with that, then we can consider improving what we are remitting.
If the government gets money from the National Treasury and puts into NHIF and says, now this is covering for universal health coverage, just like the cases, and you gave us those examples, the cases in the 4 pilot counties, people believed that now health is free, 100%, no co-paying, no contribution, it's government. If we do that, don't you see we are running that danger? We'll now not be able to come back and say,
no.
Actually, universal is you contribute.
No. Okay. You see, NHIF as an entity, for example, has they have the administrative bit and they have the bit where they are reimbursing hospitals and something. So, for example, from Treasury, it could go and cover administrative costs so that everything we contribute comes back in terms of reimbursing costs. I mean, okay, this is just me thinking out loud. But what I am trying to say is that let's see what happens first with what has been promised already.
Okay.
And remember, this is an election year. Many promises will come. So can we deal with this one first?
Okay. Can you tell us, Doc, what has been promised specifically? Because what this means is that we walk into a medical facility as a Kenyan today. There are certain things that should be accorded to you as you present that card. What is it that we know has been promised? Leave alone whether it can actually happen or not. What has been promised? And then we can go into the...
It's the basic services. I mean, if you need to see a specialist, if you need to see, even if it's wound dressing, for example, basic things that you'll need in a dispensary or a health center, that should be offered. If you need any kind of surgery, that should be offered. If the facility you're going to cannot offer that, then you're referred to the next level facility. So basically what has been promised is what you need should be able to be offered to you. If not, then they should be able to refer you to the next level of care where that is available. For example, complex surgeries, and you think about organ transplant, for example, that should be offered at our level 6 facilities, that is Kenyatta National Hospital, MTRH, Moi Teaching and Referral. Those ones should be able to do the complex surgeries. So the key thing here is that there should be some level of referral from one level of hospital to the next, or even downward referral depending on what the situation is.
How does that work?
Now the referral depends on the healthcare worker or healthcare provider that you've gotten. Because if they're not able to take care of what you've presented with, they should be able, in their own, from their own training, consultation and everything, decide that this person here needs a higher level of care, or this one just needs regular wound dressing, for example. Let's refer them to their nearest dispensary, something like that.
What I'm actually asking is, does it actually work? This referral, the theory, clear.
Referral system.
Yes, but does it work? Meaning, for instance, if I go to the clinic nearest to me, if I have an issue will I then be referred to, say, Mbagathi? And if Mbagathi can't handle, will I then be referred to Kenyatta?
If I can jump on that just a little bit. So you're saying this is what has been suggested, this is what has been promised, but does it actually work that way? And do we have everything that is required to make it work? Can we say today, without any doubt, that if I go to dispensary X in my neighborhood and they say, okay, well, this one is looking a little bit suspect, go to the next one, going to the next one, can we be assured now that it is working seamlessly?
Okay, now, so that is now, is it a bit to be done by either the county governments where the facilities are, or the national government, because they are the ones who run those policies. So in some instances, it happens. As I say, it depends on the judgment of the healthcare worker. Sometimes you think you may handle something, but then it's, at some point you realize you cannot. So the referral systems work. What usually is challenging for many people is that logistics between one place to the other, because sometimes you need an ambulance, and maybe it's not there, it has gone to attend to somebody else, or to take somebody else to hospital. So those logistics now of what should happen, or if it actually happens, is now what is usually problematic. But it does happen. The downward referral is the one that is still
an issue,
but it does happen.
One of the days when we were discussing the NHIF and the proposed regulations and all, there's something that we ended up saying, that by rolling out universal health coverage, anchoring it primarily on NHIF, which is taking money from people, on the money side and not on the service side, we are setting NHIF up for failure. We are setting up UHC for failure, and then we have someone to blame. NHIF is to blame for UHC not working, and then we shall fire the CEO of NHIF. We shall disband the board of NHIF and start afresh, but people will have contributed billions more into NHIF. Because like you're saying, the people who are actually in charge of making sure that you get the service, that promise is delivered, are the county governments and the national government. And if we are not having a conversation about what, for example, is County A doing, what is Tana River County doing to make sure that at least we have a proper county referral hospital that can even just do simple cesarean section operations.
As I said, what happens up here and what's going on the ground is totally different, because it requires the different arms or the different sections or the different governments, national government, 47 county governments. And then two, this thing should be happening concurrently. When you're doing all of these reforms in NHIF, then at the county level, at the hospital level, there should be something happening to prepare them. Now, if you look, and this week I have been in conversations with interns and several healthcare workers some were hired for the UHC implementation, Some are just interns who are supposed to go through the process. And the conversation they're having was, for them, the fifth means the fifth month that they are going without pay.
Wow.
Nothing about the president.
No.
Fifth month without pay.
Yes. And so I remember your interns, I have been a medical intern. You are the KYM. Kazi ya mkono.
You're the one doing things.
You are the one doing everything in that hospital. You should know all your patients in the ward, in casualty. You do everything.
How many hours does an intern work on average in Kenya?
Maybe they say 80 plus a week. So while you're supposed to do 40, you're on your feet double the time.
Because you're learning.
Yeah.
Because
you're training. Yeah. And if you're in obstetrics, for example, I remember the time I was on my feet literally for 36 hours. No sleep, no nothing. You're in between labor ward and theatre.
Why?
Because you are the one on call and people have to deliver. You don't tell the baby, wait, I'm tired.
Let me take a nap.
No.
Okay, but why were you there for 36 hours? Was there no, change of shifts?
The shift is 36
Was it that you were so dedicated,
no.
you really wanted to do this, to learn?
No, it was a long weekend and I'm the one who was on call. And then everyone around Machakos decided to refer to
that
Machakos.
The long weekend is the best time to have a baby.
No, it's a baby the babies decide.
The babies decide.
Yeah.
And then all of them, I think, decided to come from in the evening. So, well, your shift is a bit quiet and people have gone. Anyway, but that's the life of an intern.
Essentially.
And then you don't have money for anything. Basically, you eat at the hospital.
Yeah.
And you sleep at the hospital because... What else?
It's interesting that you say this because, I thought about this in scrutiny and reading up over the last couple of weeks and then with the rollout of UHC, and I thought to myself, the problem, and I think I was harping on it here, and I was saying, the problem is the infrastructure. We don't have the equipment that we need at all the facilities that we have. There's a problem with medicine, etc. Not even thinking about, then there are people.
There are people.
There are people who are running these things, right? Whether it's running the machines, there are people who are on call and are hired by government as medical workers. Then I didn't even think, hold on. We've had a problem where some of these folks have not been paid for a very long period of time, which is a direct contributory factor to making this thing run properly.
Yeah.
If you're not paying people,
why will they be motivated to work?
And how will your program work?
Exactly.
What is the reason they're not paid? Those ones who have gone for 5 months without pay? Are they not in the system? What would it be?
Because this is a problem. I did my internship in 2012. We had the same problem. Us guys were not paid for 3 months. So it's usually, I think for me, I would place it squarely at a planning problem, because by the time when people are graduating, you are sending them for internship. You even give them posting letters.
Yep.
How do you not put them into the payroll for them to, to work? And some complaints, they have not been budgeted for. You're wondering how? You knew.
The number of students in medical school.
All of them, even those who haven't graduated. So how do you not plan? How do you not have them in the payroll? How do you not budget for them?
Do you know what is strange about this? That was easy to explain before we went digital and everything was online and we were in the information age. We're talking about the Stone Age, say, for instance, around the time when I got into the workforce. Yes.
So when you were a trainee teacher.
No. You did your internship. When they released you, you were now teacher. There was no the trainee. You were trainee before.
You were still in college.
You were learning, yes. But it was the same thing, what that Mercy is discussing. We knew around 6 months before you get your pay. But everything was manual then, so you could explain and say, before when this file
has not moved.
Yes, you could explain it that way. But in this day and age,
crying out loud,
it's a button. So it's deliberate.
Yes. So that's what seems like it. Then there was a unique one which I found very strange, of pharmacists. Some were posted, some were not posted. So some are almost halfway done with the internship, others are still in limbo at home. So you find that how you're managing your human resource. And remember that healthcare is human capital intensive. I mean, you can have the best machines, state-of-the-art everything, including theaters. But if you don't have the skilled workforce,
who's going to use
it? That was the initial problem with that we had with the MES. Fancy machines in 47 counties, but they're still in boxes because you've not trained renal nurses, you've not trained doctors to do dialysis, you've not trained, people to do basic mammographies. So you have all of these things, but you have many people lying around not employed or being, having a bad experience at the workplace just because you're not. And one of the things, and I saw this, somebody posted online, that let's stop lying about this, purpose about working, a call. At the end of the day, you want money. At the end of the day, you need to live. And some of these people are even taking care of families.
Yeah.
And you have not paid them for 5 months, going to 6 months.
You are the hope of a family. Everybody's looking and they attended your graduation. As far as they're concerned.
Daktari.
They attended your graduation. You are daktari anafanya kazi Machakos Hospital. That's the end. Next is they expect school fees for your siblings. Talk to your sister.
Eric, you've left out what they imagine you earn.
Yes.
Oh, yes. That's another thing altogether.
But daktari.
Doctor before your name.
We are looking at Dr. So-and-so and Dr. So-and-so and Dr. So-and-so.
And you're also doctor.
And now you're also doctor.
What do you mean? You need us to send you 1,000 bob for lunch?
How?
And you're a doctor.
It raises the question, are you really a doctor?
Yes. Graduation. Let's take a break. When we come back out of this break, let's actually call in the people to tell us. Pick a county, Machakos County. One of the 4 counties that was in the trial phase for universal health coverage. Now UHC is being rolled out countrywide. Okay? So are the people of Machakos feeling that there is UHC or there was UHC and that there is now UHC being rolled out countrywide in terms of accessing facilities, in terms of getting there and finding doctors who are on duty, in terms of going there and actually being given a prescription and getting the drugs in the facilities? If you're in that county, Machakos, if you're also in Kisumu, or if you're in Nyeri, or if you're in Isiolo, so you just tell us. 0719-012-600. It's 9:30.
I like listening to you guys. You're the default radio station in my car in the morning. Even the children listen to you guys.
I agree Parliament has failed this country, and I will say it again. We have not done what we should have done.
We know in this country, the Kenya prison sector is one of the most underfunded sector.
The way it is being done and the way we're calling it Huduma Number Msema Kweli is because all records will be there. There are people who are now billionaires with no history as to how they got all these assets.
Yes. Anything that the president does that is not in accord with the constitution is an illegal act. He shouldn't be doing it and shouldn't be sitting here and trying to sort of guise it up.
I totally believe live transmission of results and allowing Kenyans to be able to view all these results. I believe that it will be impossible to steal elections.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Cloudy at 18 degrees in Nairobi, highs of 24 and lows of 15. At 19, it's partly sunny in Nakuru, highs of 26 and lows of 13. We'll see lows of 12 in Nyeri, where it's currently sunny at 17, going to highs of 24. And 18 degrees and cloudy in Eldoret, highs of 24 and lows of 12. It's now raining in Mombasa at 29, highs of 32 and lows of 26. Sunny conditions up ahead in Malindi at 28, highs of 31 and lows of 25. Partly sunny at 23 in Kisumu, highs of 28, while in Kakamega we'll see highs of 29 today and lows of 15. Raining in Kampala at 24, highs of 26 and lows of 19, while it's cloudy in Dar es Salaam, a chance of rain here as well, highs of 31 and lows of 26. Lagos is sunny at 27, highs of 34 and lows of 26, while it's sunny at 20 in Johannesburg with highs of 26. We'll see lows of 15. In Kinshasa, 24 and sunny, highs of 33 and lows of 23. It's quite warm in Beijing going into early evening Friday at 12 degrees. That'll be today's high, coming down to lows of 0. Mostly clear conditions at 2 in Paris, highs of 11 and lows of 1, while in London, it's 5 degrees. Currently, we'll see highs of 11 and lows of 3. Winter weather advisory, snow showers in New York coming into Friday morning, highs of 7 and lows of -4.
Chilled Spice.
Packed on Mombasa Road, outbound, inbound to the city is what we are looking at now. Eric, thank you very much. The Sentinel on the roads tells us it's packed. The way you pack your fingers inside there, that one, bumper to bumper. All jam, no butter. That's what we're looking at going into the city this morning. It's not happening. They're not quite sure what's causing that. If you haven't reached that junction just yet, you might want to think about using the ICD route and then going out towards the Southern Bypass. Raila Odinga Way, there is no way because it's packed completely. Moving very slowly towards Ngong Road, which, by the way, not much of a problem until you get back around that community area. Also looking at Langata Road, which has cleared up considerably. Thika Superhighway, traffic had disappeared, and then we're seeing it going past that Muthui Square area, and that's quite packed then going into the city. Apart from that, Outer Ring looking a lot better than it was before, except until you get to that Allsops Junction and you're trying to get towards Thika Road. So let's talk about it and see what's happening with you through the morning. Hopefully it doesn't get worse than what we're seeing right now. How do you do that? SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
10, it's Healthy Friday. It's the 25th day of February. Dr. Mercy Korir joins us in the studio. She's our colleague. She's the editor in charge of health and science at the Standard Group. We are talking about rolling out the UHC, and we're saying you've just given us your own practical experience and what you're seeing happening. You've spent a week, you've been talking to people who are interning in the various health facilities, and it's the same. They haven't been paid for 5 months. Mm-hmm. We are talking about the workforce that is mostly to be found in the health facilities in the country. Mm-hmm. And we are talking about rolling out UHC, where in addition to paying to NHIF, you go to a hospital, you expect to be seen by a medic, you expect to be given some prescription, you expect to go to a pharmacy, you walk out of there with the prescription drugs, and then you go home and you come back on the day you've been told by Daktari alisema nirudi leo.
In a week.
What is the experience that people have today in our health facilities? We've talked about the 4 counties that piloted UHC: Kisumu, Nyeri, Isiolo, Machakos, but across the country. Just call us 0719-012-600. What's the experience today when you go to a hospital? Today, we have UHC in the country. As far as if you ask the president, he'll add it there with Mr. Wakahio. Mr. President, delivery, UHC is rolling.
Yeah, I think, and when people call in, they'll probably say the same sentiment that there's a lot that is still wanting. There's a lot that is still yet to be done to guarantee people some sense of comfort. You know, it's a contract between we, the citizens, and the government. That paying 500 shillings is a contractual agreement. I know there are people who have contributed to NHIF, have never even seen any public health facility, but at the end of the day, it's a contract where I, as a citizen, say I have given you 500 shillings. You, on the other hand, are promising a certain level of, health services. So if I go to a facility and even at the very least, I find an unhappy nurse, because you are likely to find a nurse as the first point of triage. They're unhappy, they are mistreating you. Already you have a bad experience. We may say maybe there's a problem with them, but sometimes there are all of these frustrations, as we said. You are not even being paid, or you haven't been paid for X amount of time. You have many issues, probably even some patients are insulting you. There are lots of things. So if
Pressure
I'm going,
throughout.
if I'm going and I don't know all of this happening, and then that is the encounter that I get a bad experience. So already there's a breach of that contract, because NHIF is part of government. Ministry of Health is overall, does overall, guidance of healthcare in the country, much as it's devolved. So there should be some guarantee that even at the very least, the experience I get in the healthcare facility is good. So people need to do what is expected of them as government, and then we as the citizens are supposed to do now our other bit, which is to faithfully contribute.
Today, there are very many people who will go to hospital, and I can assure you, there are very many people who will say that they queued there for very long. And there are very many reasons why people would be queuing for very long is because maybe you actually don't have very many medics to attend to people. And then they have been told the basics. Go get X number of tests done. And you cannot get them done in this facility because lab not working. Have to go look for a lab. Go get this medicine. You have to go and buy the medicine elsewhere. Very many people will give us that experience today. And that's what we want to hear. 0719-012-600. What experience do you have when you go to a health facility? John in Nairobi. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today, John?
I'm well. I thank God.
Okay.
Yes, I wanted to talk about an experience I experienced last year. I felt sick. And I went to my local dispensary using my NHIF card. And I was referred to Kenyatta National Hospital.
From your local, was it a dispensary or county hospital?
It was a private hospital.
Okay.
After I got to Kenyatta Hospital, they said they could not accept my NHIF card anymore. I had to pay out of pocket. Yeah, so I wanted to find out if this new arrangement with the NHIF have streamlined that problem.
John, were you a regular contributor to NHIF?
I'm still a regular contributor.
Paying through the voluntary one or through your employer?
Yes.
Which one? Through employer?
No. I'm self-employed.
So you've been paying every month. Even that time you had been paying every month.
Yes.
So what was the reason that they gave you for not finding you in NHIF?
No, it's not that I'm not in NHIF. Just that with the super cover. You only covered on that hospital, that one hospital that you're registered on. The others you have to sort yourself.
And this is what we are talking about, the referral system, because I mean, if you have been referred, there's a reason why they referred.
Yep.
So that's unfortunate at the very least, because the whole point of this, of paying, as I said, is a contract, so that when I go to hospital, you don't have to go through the experience that John went through. Yeah.
And you also need just to know from the very beginning. I think also there's an issue of awareness. So this is what I am contributing and this is what I'm entitled to. That benefits conversation needs to be very, very clear.
Yeah.
Even in terms of, so which health facility do you go to? Do you how do you get to a level 5? Do you go to a level 5 as your first port of call? Will it affect your benefits claim? Should it? Should it not?
But this is a referral.
It's a referral.
He didn't
yes.
walk into the hospital. It's a referral.
You know, this discussion would be a completely different one if whatever level of healthcare facility we had actually worked as it should. Because the need to keep figuring out where you think you can get help wouldn't arise, because one, they would be able to provide whatever care you require, and again, the issue of referral would be a simple and straightforward one.
Yeah.
But the moment questions are raised about the covers, and especially when it is a certain level of cover that has been offered by NHIF, and with the promise that you'll get certain services, because there is a promise. And then when you get the promise, you're being told, it's not quite this. It is actually this. And if you say one hospital, as the caller mentioned, is it a certain, it can't be one hospital, for heaven's sake. It has to be a range of hospitals or a number of hospitals in a certain area. And even then it's confusing. What if where I live, those hospitals are God knows how many kilometers away? then what do I do?
What if the nearest facility to me is a level 4?
Yes.
And I'm being referred to a level 2 or
Yes.
level 3.
So what do I do?
Louis in Nairobi, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Very well. You know, we are talking about NHIF, and the chairman of NHIF is Louis.
Yes. I know you're talking about NHIF, but I had a different plight and contribution, and even as Dr. Masi is saying that the nurses have not been paid. So currently there's a situation where interns have not been paid for 4 months, and this cuts across interns in different cadres of health sector. There are clinical officers interns, there are medical officers interns, and they have been out there for 4 months without pay. And beginning of March will be the 5th month.
Louis, pardon me, let me just interrupt you here. Please have your phone closer to the mouthpiece so we can get you clearly.
I am.
That's better.
Yeah. So then when it comes to the motivation that Dr. Masi is talking about, and you get interns are literally the first point of contact when you go to the health facilities, and then they have not been paid for 4 months. And as we are currently witnessing within the country, the cost of living is so high. So how does an intern or even a healthcare worker go the 5th month without pay? And the Ministry of Health is non-committal on the payment plan.
Who is it who should be in charge of this?
The Ministry of Health.
It's a ministry.
Yeah, it's the Ministry of Health.
Not even at the county, not county government.
No, Ministry of Health.
Interns is directly Ministry of Health.
Yes.
Why?
Because the initial thing, it was part of training. Yes, I remember, because it's a training component. Because as an intern, you're still going on training. So between the national and the county governments, that was the agreement. They post and take care of interns for 1 year, after which now they are posted into the different counties.
They're absorbed by the counties.
Yeah.
4 months without this, and that's what Louis was saying. It's various cadres.
Oh yeah.
So not just those who have come from medical school.
All of them.
But you know what this does, Eric? Entrepreneurship. Because now, suddenly, this intern will, with the assistance of others who've gone through this system and understand how it is done, they're going to be running a private business within the public sector.
How?
They will charge patients, and they will tell you, because they have an understanding of how the facility works. You hear of cases where a patient says, I went to a public hospital, but in addition to this, I was asked to pay this amount of money.
Also, to facilitate you
this process,
to access the service,
and to make sure that you actually get the service that you want.
You pay a facilitation fee. However, this facilitation fee is motivation fee for this intern to eat.
Yes, because they're not going to say that you want to get the service. If you want this service to be quicker, if you want to ensure that
you can be on page 1 as opposed to page
that,
16.
that doctor sees you in the next 20 minutes, this is what you need to do, and you will be seen in the next 20 minutes. So an avenue for business is actually opened right there.
And the cost of survival for the intern then is taken care of.
Oh, I do realize what I'm saying. Let me repeat it so that it can be understood with greater clarity.
Say it, please.
I'm saying, when people aren't paid, they have to eat. Because it's not as though they're posted to a health facility next to their ancestral home. No. What they are going to do is they are going to get clever, and they are going to create a business opportunity for themselves. And these patients who come in there will be the people with whom they'll do business. To ease the services, they'll present a scenario where, with their connivance, you are able to get these services better. The same service you'd get, but better, quicker, for a small fee.
Rapid.
And this is somebody who's come to seek these services because they are unwell.
And is desperate already.
And they're already desperate.
Yes. Wouldn't you would spend when you were desperate? Wouldn't you?
Yes. I asked you guys at 6, what do we need to do? Do we need to hold some prayers, ask God, what have we done?
Sacrifice a goat hill.
Yeah.
No, the prayers need to be consistent.
Pay the intern. It's not rocket science.
But now because it's not me who's in charge of paying the interns, and the person who's doing it is not doing it. So what do I do?
And the interns, you're talking about nurses, you're talking about clinical officers, okay?
Everywhere.
And what about the medical doctors? They are also not paid. So I'm saying...
Sorry, excuse me, please. This money that we're talking about paying the interns is not in the hundreds of thousands. The kind of money that we're even speaking about as it is already meager. Is it not?
How much is an intern now, right now, entitled on average figure?
For the medical ones, I think maybe I have 150. I'm not so sure with them. There've been changes, but anyway, let's say on average it's 100 across board, minimum 100.
And this is somebody who has graduated university. They're still going through the training in medical school. This is doctor.
Yes.
And we're also talking pharmacist.
Dentists.
Eric, it's not medical school per se. You are now
university.
Out in university. You're through with.
You've just finished university.
You're in the real world now.
It's like apprenticeship.
This is apprenticeship. The first year after you've graduated from university. Doctor, pharmacist, dentist,
nurse, clinical officer. They are all of these lab technicians, biomedical engineers, all of these guys.
From university. Is it the same even from those from KMTC?
Some from KMTC.
And remember, these are the people you require for this health facility to function. And they're the engine. These so-called trainees, they're the engines. They're the ones who actually do the heavy lifting.
So then you don't pay them, and you expect them to be there on the beat every day, and they're the ones who then, lap up this extra that, somebody wasn't there, the one in charge is not there, somebody's going to come and fill in, and then you don't pay them, but you expect them to be there on a daily.
No, they show up because you're being assessed. So people show up and they work, but still you have to survive.
Mwalimu Irongo.
Yes, good morning, Eric.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody else, including Dr. Mercy.
Good morning, sir. How are you today?
I'm fine, Moses.
I am going to find a suitable name for you, Nebuchadnezzar.
You will find anyway. Let me not get. But please call me Daniel. Good morning.
Okay, Daniel.
Let me make my contribution. I don't understand why the president and the Minister of Education, or rather Minister of Health, wants to rush into increasing these NHIF fees. In fact, they should deal with what we are paying first. Let me give you some experience. I have a back problem, and at some point I was supposed to be treated at the Kisumu Teaching and Referral Hospital. You know what these guys did? I went there. I had been referred from Uja District Hospital. Then they told me that the process of activating my NHIF, I don't know what is activating or accepting the referral, would take very long, so I had to pay cash. I then asked them how much I was supposed to pay, and then when I did my shopping around, I discovered that Kijabe Hospital was cheaper than them. So you can imagine I had to go there for treatment. Remember, this is a teacher who is subjected to two medical covers, AON and NHIF. And the stories are many. Finally, I want again to focus on Kisumu Teaching and Referral Hospital. These guys are actually running two pharmacies. One where you will be told, the one now where you should be, where those drugs you are supposed to be given, you go there, get them on account of whichever cover you are using at a particular NHIF. Then there is one behind that, the same block, where now you are told these drugs you have to pay. This one, hii is your yetu, hii ni mtu anauza.
Oh wow, Seka kiosk.
You see now, the irony of it is that the public one, if I can call it so, never has drugs except the basic ones. So unless those things are straightened out, I'm afraid those guys are quoting on a price. We will not accept to be deducted. We don't have the drugs. The services are not available. I think it's not fair. Let the president listen to us.
That's true. Thank you very much, Mwalimu. Mwalimu Irongo Amos Daniel.
Yes.
Zachary, good morning.
Oh, morning, people.
Good morning, person. How are you?
I'm good person. I'm good person. Then let me pass my regards to now not Monica but Mercy Koech.
Not Koech.
Hey, brother.
Mercy.
Zachary. Sure.
Yep. Mercy, if I may tell you, those guys are going to tell you that I'm dealing with a very long list of Warebos who have applied to be enjoined in the Zachary and Warebo project. So that is why I'm confused. In fact, I call Sarah, Chadai, those names, yeah.
Definitely.
And I know the ones that are going to retain. Like Chadai is no, like whatever, funny name. I want to retain the old name. Now, very quickly, let me say this, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in primary school, we used to have some algebra simplifications, yeah. I never used to understand those things. And I found them jargon. And the teacher was so ruthless. They were ruthless, yeah. And when I went to now a bit higher, I found some quadratic equations, some calculus. They were also a bit hard, and not easy to understand. Why am I saying this? I'm giving that analogy to say that is how I find these the so-called SAF, the hell, the what. These things are things. Let me tell you, Mr. Eric and the panel and Marcy there to go and tell the honchos there. Right now, I tell you that I do business, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
If I can tell you the doctors, people who are associated with health, they owe me. And when I go there, I say, oh, these people are not pretending. Actually, they don't have money. You go, and it's not a lot of money. Some 5,000, some 1. And once you go to tell them that, oh, I need the money so that I can pay for the whatever, yeah? They tell you, you remember what Okonkwo did? No, not Okonkwo, his father, Unoka. He had drawn some sticks from the smallest to the biggest. And when you went to ask for your money, the guy would tell you, oh, what brought you here? After now you have broken the corridors, yeah? He would tell you, do you see that big stick there? That guy is Eric, and he has never been bothering me this early, like you are doing, yeah? So even if I get the money, I would not first of all consider you. I would consider that. So let me say this, yeah. I love West African research, and those guys are very creative and they are good, yeah. I said the last time there that let the national government take over health. Let us pay tax, either through the food that we are saying that we want to. Let them increase even the cost of food. But raise other business of you pay this, that's nonsense. As far as I'm concerned, let us pay. Let the government take over the whole health sector
and run it. Zachary, thank you. Have a lovely weekend.
Wish you a good weekend.
With our rainbow.
Thank you. A nice weekend, guys.
Thank you, Zachary.
Ismail Kimani is saying the whole NHIF, MOH, UHC is just a hurried concussion just to get a presidential deliverable. Extremely disgusting enterprise. Andrew Franklin says, just merely an observation based on today's conversations. 1, medical personnel go for months without being paid by GOK. Health system is in shambles. Road users are blamed for the reality of killer roads paid for by the government of Kenya. A new bridge collapses in Kajiado. Impunity kills.
It kills, man. Very, very, very true. Very true. And Daniel, there is something that I think NHIF and Ministry of Health should take seriously. Where and even the first caller, John, where you've been paying faithfully, you're up to date, you're going to a facility, and then you're asked to pay out of pocket. It doesn't make sense. Or you go to the pharmacy in the facility, and then you're told, this cover doesn't have these medicines. I mean, what?
And you need the medicine.
Yeah. Anyway, let me not speak any French, but really, you have been prescribed, that facility should have that. That's why we have camps, and there's been all of this, callers, we are flagging off medicines. What medicines is camps are flagging off if it's not medicine that is going to help people that need it. What is all of these reforms if on the ground you're still asked to go, outside? If there's still a parallel system that takes money from people, what is that?
What is this? Dr. Mercy, come again next week on Friday. Let's
Definitely.
continue this conversation. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
We are going into the weekend. We have some interesting conversations that are going to be taking place, especially tomorrow. The Digital Technology for Women in Business Part 2 is back. Tomorrow, Olivia Otieno will be taking 00 Direct live and on location for a free must-attend forum for women in business. If you're already registered on www.spicefm.co.ke, this is your chance to interact with experts in the digital technology and learn how you can take your business to the next level. The Digital Technology for Women in Business Part 2 in partnership with Visa. She's next. Empower her. City, the proverb.
Well, as we didn't say a word, he thought he could do anything he liked. Well, I'm saying the word. Have a lovely weekend.
Have a good one too.
Ndu, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Yeah. See you on Monday.
Yes, let's do it.
Have a lovely weekend. It's now 10 a.m.